Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, proud part of Utah's ESPN radio network. Today is a big day in the United States of America. It's a holiday, Martin Luther King Day. Hopefully you're having a day off and you're driving around. Your kids are out of school. Maybe you're headed to some type of family activity and listening instead of commuting or heading to lunch or whatever it is that you're usually doing when you're listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. I hope it's a better version of that today as a bank holiday, a national holiday here in the United States of America, honoring the life and accomplishments of a great man, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It is also Inauguration Day, as everyone I'm sure is acutely aware. Donald Trump will be sworn in as president. And, of course, the most relevant to us right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, it is the national championship of our college football season. This, like the Super Bowl, is one of the great sports holidays on your calendar. We should do this. We should have Holy War Monday off in Utah. Anytime BYU and Utah square off in football, the next Monday, it's a long weekend. All right? Would you rather have the Monday off or would you rather have the Friday off, James, before a Saturday Holy War game?
Maybe the Friday, because that's the day before and Monday's a couple days after. You already get the next day. Maybe, and that's what I was going to say. For like church should be. You should be off church on Sunday.
No church.
On Holy War.
No church.
We just had our church last night. Sorry.
I think, you know what, the Friday before would be the better holiday.
Yeah.
You get time to ramp up. You just do this super extended tailgate. You get to, get your smoker out. And
camp
make sure
at the
brisket
stadium,
is perfectly.
maybe.
You camp up there. You got your pork belly going on. Like, that's probably the better way to do it. And yes,
make a Whittinghamville, a Kalanieville.
For the Utah fans, they would be able to sleep off the hangover, and for the BYU fans, they'd be able to sleep off the caffeine hangover, and everyone would be fine.
Yeah, the swig and the fizz hangover,
the swig, fizz, thirst,
Mountain Dew.
I was told that there's another one of those places that just opened up that's called another one of those drink shops or another one of those soda shops.
That's what it's called?
Yes.
That's great.
I've not actually seen this location. 877-353-0700.
We need a picture of it.
If
text
you
us
can
a
confirm
picture.
or deny. Someone text me a picture. 877-353-0700 on the Dish Pros text line. We always love hearing from you.
They need to be a client so we can properly shout them out, too. Another one of those soda shops. Love it.
At Real OC Sports, if you want to weigh in. And, of course, I've got a poll question up today. Simple one. Who you got, Notre Dame or Ohio? Show today.
That's
James,
also / who do you like more, James Peterson or Sean O'Connell?
Yes. Given what has been happening on Twitter lately, I don't want the results of that poll. I will say this, though. We will
interpret this poll that way, though. We just will.
Yes. Okay, fine. So James is fully decked out. You have your socks on?
I have the socks.
Is there a jersey on underneath that hoodie?
I have the jersey underneath the hoodie. I've got the hat, as you can see.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm all decked out, ready to go.
Does Wooden Grail have Ohio State hats yet?
They do not.
Okay.
I looked it up because I'd love to get a corduroy or the suede.
Yes.
Maybe flip the script, maybe not flip the script. It was one of those suede or corduroy Ohio State hats would be wonderful.
I'm sure at some point they'll have it, but at this moment, you're going to have to suffer through wearing that hideous hat that you've got on your head instead. So James is fully decked out in his Ohio State gear as an Ohio State fan. I am not wearing any Notre Dame's. I should have worn I have a Manti Te'o. I have a Manti Te'o jersey. I should have worn that. You know what?
Fan.
I'm saving wearing my Manti Te'o jersey for the day when we can get him to join us here in studio now that he's a resident of Utah. And I'm just going to wear his jersey, but I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm not going to bring it up. I'm not going to call attention to it, and just see how awkward it makes him feel. That a man older than him is wearing his jersey and just like, hey, Manti, welcome to my show. It'll just
need
be
to
great.
make that happen.
We'll be on YouTube. Everyone could just watch the awkward tension building in the room.
You need to you need to also bring one of your Weber State jerseys and just offer it to, hey, jersey
you
swap.
Want to do a jersey swap? He's like, they're both yours. I know, but do you want this one?
I already have yours. Do you want mine?
Yeah, he would politely, if he wanted to be polite, he'd have to accept. Yeah. And then we just find it in the garbage can outside. Anyway. Notre Dame, Ohio State tonight. We'll talk about some of the numbers. We'll have a couple of the prop bets going into that. Jeff Schwartz is going to join us at 1 o'clock to recap the NFL weekend and to preview the national championship game. That's going to be a fun conversation coming up at 1. We have Jared Calhoun, Utah State men's basketball head coach, joining us here in about half an hour. Scott Mitchell will discuss the goings-on of college football, the NFL, and, of course, Utah football. Huge weekend of NFL football. Huge night tonight for the national championship. And we had a hoop holy war at the Huntsman Center this past weekend.
Such a good game, OC.
And James, I'd said Utes by 4. I was wrong. It ended up being an overtime 1-point victory for the University of Utah, for the Runnin' Utes.
I mean, to be fair, you might have been right if they made a couple of free throws down the stretch. If they just, man, that was brutal watching them. But they survived anyway.
They wanted to make it interesting for all of us that were trying to figure out which games to flip back and forth to, and there was fights on Saturday night as well, James. So that was like, it was the trifecta of trying to figure out the right viewing. Okay, during this commercial break, I'm going to flip over to the fights. No, there's NFL playoff football.
Did you have a laptop or something in front of you with one of them on too?
So my laptop, I'm really telling on myself here. My laptop is so old and decrepit and banged up that it has to be plugged in.
Oh, for the videos
just the battery doesn't last anymore,
okay.
So it has to be plugged in. So I had the laptop pulled out. The charger was still in my backpack. I had the laptop pulled out, and it only lasted like 6 minutes of that setup. And then I could have gone out to the car to get – anyway, I'm lazy, so I didn't go and plug it in. And, there's not like a convenient plug when you're sitting on the couch. The way my house is set up, my couch is not – against the wall. It's like it's like out there in the middle of the room.
I was going to say they've got those skinny tables now with plugs. We've got one.
The console tables.
We're up against the wall. We've got it in the corner, so you get those small wooden tables that have plugs in them.
Yeah,
I have an extra laptop cord that's always plugged in.
See, that's nice. I am a slave to the decor of the home when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And so it's not convenient, and I'm too lazy. So anyway, that setup didn't last very long. But at the end of the day, what matters is that Runnin' Utes basketball improves to 3-3 in Big 12 play and does so with a win over a rival that is supposed to be ahead of you in the basketball world. And we talked about last week how this was becoming a much more interesting matchup, and the numbers were lining up a little bit better than a lot of people thought they were. And I was kind of tongue-in-cheek saying, don't worry about the Ken Palm. But what really mattered is the way that these two teams, when they actually met up and played, the way that they approached this game, right? Utah is in a situation where the expectations are very different right now. And it allows these guys to play loose. It allows these guys to just go out there. And you can't use the bite down on your mouthpiece analogy because not a lot of guys in basketball are wearing mouthpieces. But they just go and play the game, right? BYU's the team with potentially 2 lottery picks on it right now. We don't know if there's an NBA guy on this Utah basketball team, right? Like the way that you're going to have to play your way into that conversation. Yegor Demin is just trying to not fall out of that conversation by continuing to miss free throws and continuing to miss 3-point shots. Like Cannon Ketchig's, a lot of people think is kind of that fringe lottery type player. We'll see, but this Utah basketball team doesn't have that going on right now. All of the conversation, if there is conversation at all, is like, all right, well, you used to be a basketball school, and now what has happened? And Craig Smith has been able to win everywhere else, and it's taken too long here. And And this team had to go out and prove something against BYU. They understood the assignment. Ezra Asar, more than anyone, understood the assignment, and they did. And the fact that Ezra did what he did against a team that has a couple of big physical presence inside, I think is something that hopefully will carry forward for Utah basketball. Having a guy, a 6'9", 6'10" guy that sees other alpha dogs, to overuse a term that is abused in our society, but that sees someone on the other side of the court who is supposed to be able to match up with you physically, supposed to be able to push you off your spot, supposed to be able to box you out, to have a guy see those dudes over there and just be like, no, they're not gonna stop me in this game. Like, not every college basketball team has a 280-pound body that's supposed to be able to wall you off. And the fact that Ezra was able to do what he did, knowing that, like, what Keba, what he looks like when he's just getting off the bus, so to speak.
Traore.
And same thing.
Doesn't have much height, but man, he is built. That's intimidating to see Traore and probably go up against Traore.
I'm not the first person to say this. A lot of people have made this point, but his best future might be in football.
Yeah.
He's a guy who might have to say,
he looks like a nose tackle, doesn't he? You're not good luck getting through this line, running back.
That there's a lot of people, because of his, when you're a basketball player, what do we say about all these offensive linemen that are like the Jordan Mailata type offensive lineman, who's the number one guy, Pro Football Focus, number one tackle in Pro Football Focus this year, played this weekend for the Eagles. You talk about his fluidity, his footwork, and he's a guy who picked up football when he was like 19 years old, and now he's the best in the league, right? So Traore is one of these individuals who doesn't have the height to really be an elite basketball player at the NBA level, but he's got this big body, these shoulders that you could pack some pounds on. He hasn't been in a real, like, football-style weight training program. That's a dude that we'll probably see playing on Sundays if he wants to try to be an offensive tackle or if he wants to try to do the defensive line thing. Somebody will give him a shot. But when you're a basketball player, when you're somebody like Ezra Asar who sees that and knows exactly what that bullying style of basketball is going to be, and you just say, no, not going to happen to me today. I love that he was able to go out and impose his will on a team that had some size and some physicality to throw at him. That is meaningful in today's world of college basketball. And the other thing that was so interesting about this, I keep asking the question, with football, we put it in the context of, like, how do you teach the culture? How do you make sure that these guys know what it really means to be a Utah football player when there's a new coach in the room and there's all new players in the room, or there's half the players are new and there's no real, like, elder statesman? How do you know? In basketball, it's even more difficult to tell people what this rivalry means. If you're not from the state of Utah, and thankfully the Utes have some guys who are from the state of Utah who have some context there. But if you're some guy who comes in and you're here on a one-year rental, or you're maybe, passing through for a year or two, how do you know? How do you know what it means when BYU comes to the Huntsman Center? And because of the environment up there, because it's the only game Utah men's basketball gets to play in front of a massive crowd, these guys totally understood what that game was, what that game meant. And, when it's a rivalry game, throw the records out. Absolutely. Throw the record out in that one, except, wait, you don't have to, because you had the same conference records going into that game, and Utah emerged as the better team. Won it in overtime. Like you said, probably didn't have to be an overtime game if they would have made a couple of more free throws. But when you talk about the most important wins in his tenure at the University of Utah for Craig Smith, that's number one right now.
Yeah, and it felt like last year, which was a similarly close, down to the wire victory for Utah, that they didn't need overtime for, but it went down to the wire. Last year's win at the Huntsman Center felt that way too, and then they had a pretty good start to January. At this time last year, we felt like they were for sure going to be an NCAA tournament team, and then they had injuries and other things that contributed to their fall down the stretch. That's what I'm hoping that this year's different in that regard, that this win can propel them to much better play than they had at the end of the year. And I know, like I just mentioned, injuries played a part in that. They got to stay healthy as well. That's obviously huge. But if you can stay healthy, I'm hoping that can have a better finish than they've had the last couple of years, when it felt like at this point, the last 2 years really, they might be a tournament team.
What is going to happen for Utah football? Not Utah football. That's my brain is so geared to talk Utah football all the time. What's going to happen for Utah basketball when they have a game with this kind of ball movement, with this defensive effort, and they actually shoot well?
Yeah, because they did not shoot well.
And this is 3 in a row now in conference play. They haven't shot particularly well in any of those games. It would be easy to look at it and say, like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, they shot 52% from the field, and they shot 48% from 3. And that's not necessarily going to be sustainable. That's why they were able to beat BYU. No, 44% from the field, 26% from 3, and an embarrassing 53% from the free throw line. And they still found a way to win because of all those other things, because of the effort, because of the defensive awareness, because of ball movement. That was a great team basketball performance with only one individual performance that really stuck out. And that's not college basketball. That's not this Utah team's college basketball, at least. Like, you're not going to lean on Ezra Asar to give you a great game and everyone else can kind of just flail around shooting from a shooting percentage standpoint. Usually, in these most recent wins, they've had a couple of guys. It's been Dawes and Wallin. It's been Ezra and Dawes. It's been a little bit of a complementary basketball.
Madsen's been a lot better from three-point range, and you can typically depend on him to give you better efficiency from three-point range. Now, BYU did an awesome job just not leaving him alone. So a lot of his threes were highly contested, so you can't blame a ton of his subpar shooting numbers on Saturday on him. You got to credit BYU's defense, but yeah, like, you typically get more out of Gabe Madsen. You don't get near as much out of Ezra Asar, but if Ezra Asar, this is 3 straight games with at least 16 points. They're 3-0 in those games. If you can get that 15 to 16 points, 6 to 8 rebound performance where you can throw it into him, you can depend on him for a few buckets in a row, that could change a ton of things for this Utah team.
If I had told you heading into like Saturday afternoon that Jake Wallin and Keanu Dawes are going to go combined 3 for 10 from the field, 1 for 4 from the three-point line, for a total of 7 points between them, are they going to beat BYU? You'd have laughed and be like, well, that's unfortunate. That's a BYU blowout.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely how you would have to feel about that. Those were the two guys Bill Riley had shouted out to us on Friday when you asked who does Utah have to have good games from to win this game. He mentioned Gabe Madsen, and he said, to his credit, he said that doesn't mean he has to be lights out from 3-point range and score 30 points. He has to be efficient and a good ball mover and those kinds of things. But he also said Jake Wallin and Keanu Dawes are 2 of the most valuable players on this team. They basically gave you nothing on Saturday night, and you somehow won the game.
So Utah men's basketball 3-3 in conference play now. They are 11-6 on the season. And the reason I talk about this being such a big win for Craig Smith and how important it is, look, you are judged on a lot of different fronts now as a college program in whatever sport, but especially in these revenue sports and especially here in the state of Utah, football and basketball are going to be held up right next to one another. And by the way, both BYU and Utah have to deal with Utah State as a basketball presence. Not so much in the football world, but Jared Calhoun's going to join us in about 5 minutes here on the show. You've got to deal with Utah State as a basketball presence as well. And in the transfer portal era, right, let's say you convince a guy to come to the state of Utah, right? You convince a guy to be part of this weird little microcosm of America that we've got going on, right? That guy comes and he shows up and he plays in your program and he likes it and he has some success. But the season's over, the transfer portal window opens, and everybody's calling him. And he's like, gosh, I don't want to leave Utah. It turns out I like Utah. But, man, we lost to the Utes, or we lost to the Cougs, or we lost to the Aggies. And I want to stay in Utah, but I don't want to stay in a program where I'm not going to have the postseason I'm looking for. Like, unfortunately, this is what Utah has been dealing with this offseason on the football front. A bunch of guys in Carson Ryan and Keanu Tanuvasa and the like who are just like, I don't want to leave the state of Utah. I love it here. I got family here. I got friends here. I want to play for what I think is the best football team here. And I don't think it's going to work out this way long term, but in 2024, BYU is the better football team, and BYU is the hotter name, and the conversation around BYU right now is more positive. So they're like, okay, let me go see what's going on there. I know that's not the whole conversation, but that's part of the conversation. In basketball, it's going to be the same. And right now, leading up to this game, James, who gave Utah a shot of even beating BYU once this year? Who gave Utah basketball a shot of coming out on top of that comparison in any front? Because it's always like the last year plus has been, look what BYU's doing in recruiting. Look what BYU's doing in NIL. Look what BYU's doing on the floor. Oh, wait, on the floor, they're not doing anything special right now. And Spence brought this up on his show on Friday. I do that thing, that lazy thing we all do in sports media, where when you bring up a coach, hey, great coach, but, you know, this guy obviously has a lot of success, or he's a great coach, and you say things like great coach when we don't actually know if Kevin Young's a great college basketball coach.
Still got to prove it. Yeah.
And the words that came out of my mouth were, look, Kevin Young is great. He's figuring out college basketball. You can eliminate the great part. We don't know.
Yeah.
He's figuring out college basketball. Is he a great recruiter? Obviously he is. Is he someone with NBA connections, which was very, very important to the puppet masters of who was helping with that hire down at BYU? Obviously, yes. He came from an NBA staff. Is he highly paid? Is he one of the top 10 paid coaches in all of college basketball? Yes. Did he bring a squad that was on paper better than Utah up to the Huntsman Center and lose on Saturday night? Also, yes. These things are important in the micro and in the macro, because Utah basketball has been a victim of pessimism and been a victim of sort of the changing winds of everything going on in state, at BYU especially. And instead of worrying about it, wallowing in the misery that could come from that, Utah basketball went out, they played hard, not with great shooting performances, not with perfect execution from the free throw line, but with good old-fashioned elbow grease and effort and want to. They found a way to stop a BYU program, not just this team, but a BYU program that seems poised to kind of snatch away all the basketball glory, suck all the basketball air out of the room, at least down here in the Salt Lake, Wasatch Front area. Logan is its own body, I suppose.
Yeah, and I was saying on Friday, I said as we were previewing this game, this might be the game that Utah needs to make sure they get against BYU, because, as you mentioned, we know the talent on paper that BYU has. You would think the next time they face off at the Marriott Center, the last day of the season on March 8th, you would think by then Kevin Young's going to figure out the X's and O's part of college basketball, the coaching part of college basketball. You would think that Diego Demon, Cannon Catchings, and all the other talent on that roster is going to get its legs underneath them. This might have been the game where BYU was vulnerable enough for Utah. Utah's at home too in this game, for Utah to be able to steal a win over their rival. You may not. A lot less guaranteed. Come March 8th at the Marriott Center, you would think with more time, given the talent that they have, and I would say the talent and the experience that Kevin Young has as a coach, he needs to prove that he can put it all together as a coach at the college level, that you would think that by March 8th they'll have it figured out enough. So this is huge that Utah was able to take advantage of the vulnerabilities of BYU early on in the conference season.
Can I give you a prediction that will very certainly come true for that March 8th matchup when Utah and BYU next square off in regular season basketball?
That they'll play each other?
Utah's going to win that game too.
Oh.
And I'll tell you why. Because BYU is going to be in the tournament conversation, and Kevin Young is an NBA basketball coach, and he is going to have a load management system going on, and it's going to drive BYU fans absolutely nuts because, like, Yegor Demon is not going to play in that game or something, and Utah's going to go in and steal another one at the Marriott Center before BYU is supposed to be playing its best basketball heading into tournament time, and that's going to be another thing for Utah fans to kind of relish.
He's going to bring load management to college basketball. Love it.
Bold predictions here on the Sean O'Connell Show. I wish desperately, by the way, that we were able to do our own show and hear what's happening on the Pat McAfee show on the television on ESPN, because Shane Gillis and Nick Saban are in the same building again, and I want Shane Gillis to make fun of Nick Saban's dye job.
Yes.
We were talking about this pre-show. The hair on Nick Saban is unbecoming of a man of his accomplishment. Nick Saban, you let it go gray, dog. Like, you are a 7-time national champion. You are one of the most respected voices in America's pastime, which is football now. It's not baseball. And you're incredibly rich on top of that. You don't need to have a bad dye job anymore. All right? Just let it go. Shave it off if you have to.
The maddening thing about it is he does keep a little gray. Just let the gray take. Let's do a gray takeover, my guy.
He doesn't
Silver
keep enough.
Fox.
It's mostly like the when like a woman does the bleach job and then the roots start to grow out. That's what he's got going on at the temples right now.
It's probably not on purpose. It's
got
probably just his roots
are growing out. Come on, Nick. Coach Saban. You're on national television. It's National Championship Day. You think, James, I got to call fights next weekend. You think I'm going on camera looking like this? I got to go get a haircut. I have to look presentable. I look like a homeless person right now. Anyway, we got to take a break. Utah basketball, big victory over BYU. Ezra Asar led the way. Unbelievable performance. And we're going to talk more college hoop with Jared Calhoun, Utah State men's basketball head coach. They're back in action coming up quick here in just a couple of days, coming off a loss, only their second loss of the season. Jared Calhoun in 3 minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 792.1 FM. Welcome in for the very first time, head coach Utah State men's basketball, Jared Calhoun. Jared, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate you giving me some time. I know it is a very busy time of year. Your Aggies, 16-2, 6-1 Mountain West play, a half game behind New Mexico. It's been a strong start to the year, and now we're into conference play in earnest. Why is it working so well up there in Logan? It's a simple question with probably a very complicated answer, but what are your players doing best for you right now?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think we just have great people, right? Before you can talk about X's and O's in basketball, we're really a reflection of, really the entire state of Utah. I think we just have great kids. We have a lot of kids from the state. When they put the uniform on, it really means something to them. We're able to blend some returning players with some new guys. And I think they're just wonderful people. And then I think, structurally and basketball-wise, we've been able to, play a little faster than most teams in the Mountain West. We're second in the conference in points and pace. And then defensively, we haven't played great the last 2 weeks. But, pretty much all year we've played a matchup zone that's been a little bit different than most of the teams in the Mountain West. So it's been a really good blend so far.
What does a Jared Calhoun practice look like when you feel like the team needs to be playing better defense? Like what is the style that works for you now, with given everything we know about the environment of college basketball and the character of your players, like you were just talking about?
Yeah, just being disruptive, right? We got to continue to force turnovers. At one point, we were top 10 in the country in steal percentage. So, sports are about possessions. Each possession has a life of its own, right? So it's taking your defense and imposing your will on the offense, taking them out of things that they want to do, not only individually when you got to know, tendencies of certain players, but just overall concepts, things that the teams that we're playing against are good at. In the Mountain West, it's a big, strong, physical league, a little faster pace this year than most, but typically it's a slow league. So force and tempo, right? Trying to get teams outside their comfort zone is a big key to it.
So your roster, like many other rosters, pretty much every other roster in college basketball or college football or college whatever now, you have transfer players, and the transfer portal and the mobility of players is a new-ish thing, but more for us who've been having to talk about it, and not for us who've been having to deal with it on an everyday basis for a few years, which of course anyone in the coaching world has. The ability to integrate somebody who is a program newcomer or to replace someone who you didn't think was maybe going to leave, how challenging is that?
Yeah, I think when the portal first started about 4 years ago now, I was very, very nervous, really didn't know if I really wanted to stay in the business, right, and was very used to building it old school way, take the high school kids, redshirt them, develop them, get some consistency. But you soon realize you have to adapt, right? And I think we've adapted pretty well. We've got a certain system that we look at each position, guys that we're trying to get, in the portal. And then to me, the most important players are the guys in your program. So when we got here in April, we wanted to see who was going to be in, who was going to be out, really try to listen to their story, get to know them on a personal level, and then just really integrate our system and figure out who fits our system. And I think the 5 kids that decided to come back have done a wonderful job. The new kids that we were been able to add, the 9 new players, have really bought into we over me. A lot of the coaches in the country have a lot of different philosophies. Ours is simply just putting the team above yourself and and all assets of, the program. And that's how we've been able to operate. There's been certainly a lot of coaches come in out of Utah State and have great success. Everybody has a different style. Everybody inherits different rosters, different teams. But being able to navigate through that, it's been pretty good. And I think our program has a certain type of guy we want to attract at each position, and we try to do that.
At the very beginning of that answer, Coach, you said, I wondered if I wanted to stay in the business. If I get truth serum in every coach in college basketball, was that something with these changes, with the NIL, with the transfer portal? Was that something that everyone kind of had to look in the mirror and see whether they were still a fit for this new business? Because it's a different one than you signed up for and a different one than you got into, a few years back.
Oh, there's no question. When we first got in, we weren't able to give the kids snacks. Now we're basically paying guys salaries, right? There's a salary cap with whatever your NIL can come up with, and there's a lot of different layers to it. But we started at Youngstown State, and we kind of rolled up our sleeves and went to work and started to understand the portal and the impact that NIL can have, and kind of what we wanted our players to impact in our community. It's always been the youth. I think, that's the next generation of leaders and, our society. So I think our guys have done a tremendous job with that at Utah State. Some of our players, Mason Falslev, right here from Cache Valley, has a bigger summer camp than we do at Utah State. So the popularity of the player is really, really growing. The impact that they can have on a community is really neat. So you just got to adapt to it. And now I think we're thriving in it. We still have a lot of work to do as far as raising the number of dollars for our NIL, but soon we're going to be going to revenue sharing, where the school will actually, budget, each program with what they'll be able to spend. So that's going to be another change in itself. So just continue to change, continue to evolve, stay positive through it, and, really just try to impact young people's lives in a good way.
Mason Falslev has a bigger camp than your official Utah State Aggie camp.
Yeah, it's not close.
It's amazing. As he asked you to come be a guest coach, do a little guest spot there. What would the pay be like for you if he was offering? Because it's a business now. So is he like, hey, I'll give you?
He didn't. Yeah, he didn't want to cough up his camp list to me, so we had to have a heart-to-heart on that. His list is a lot bigger than ours, but I think it just shows you the change, right? There's definitely a trajectory and a change in player empowerment, and I think you have to do it collaboratively. We bring in our players a lot and ask them for suggestions, how we can upgrade our program, things we need, what impacts winning, and then how we can help them get out in the community and try to help with some of those things. So it's been pretty neat to see the evolution of the NIL, of the transfer portal, and certainly there's just changes every week, it seems like, that you got to stay up to date on.
We saw this year, I think more than any other year in college football, the conversation ramping up about it. Well, it's who's paying these guys the most that are going to end up at the end of the line, and they're Notre Dame and Ohio State, they're doing just fine, right? Obviously, they're among the biggest NIL funds and the top pay for players. But we also saw when the 12-team expanded college football playoff world came into existence, we saw some unexpected players. Boise State, who's a conference foe of yours. Boise State was there. Arizona State from the Big 12, not expected to be there, but is. And they're not necessarily the biggest spenders in all this. So I have pushed back and kind of rejected the idea that only the biggest spenders are going to be able to compete. While I fully acknowledge you have to definitely play this new game and you have to do everything you can to maximize that earning potential for your student athletes, Coach, it feels like there's a heck of a lot more to it than just that. And I think your Aggies right now are a good example of that. Not the only one in the country, but certainly a good example of that. The interplay of making sure you can pay, but also that when you do, you're developing these guys the right way and you're doing it that old school way like you were talking about earlier in this conversation. How do you make the two fit together?
Well, I think you brought up some really, really good points. You can't buy a championship. If you could, the Yankees would win it every year, right? So
right.
I definitely don't think that's the case. I do think you have to be you have to be involved in the NIL, but we're sixth overall in NIL in the collective world in the Mountain West, right? And currently we're tied for first place. Currently we were the only team last week ranked in the top 25. So you can do it a million ways, right? Just like basketball, you can play a bunch of different styles. I think you have to have the right pieces, the right people. Before you have, you go out and spend a ton of money on a roster. You got to make sure you have the right people that kind of fit your system, embody your university, And I think that's been the secret sauce here at Utah State. Everybody always asks, why are they so good year in and year out? I think first and foremost, I think we have one of the best fan bases in America, if not the number one student section in the country. So home court environment is very, very real. But this team's been able to win on the road. You know, we won Iowa neutral. We won at St. Mary's, at San Diego State, at Nevada. So there's a toughness level, but more importantly, there's a togetherness with this group that goes beyond any amount of money, right? And I think you have to have a little bit of both, and that's really why this team's been able to thrive. But, yeah, I think you make really good points. I think a lot of coaches have never coached in the NIL space, so they come into a situation and may feel like they need to have the most money. And, you know, you have to have a feel for this, right? I mean, there's a real feel when it comes to evaluating your roster and what type of people you want in. And we've been doing it since its existence. You know, this is something I've had to figure out for a number of years, and I think our system is pretty good.
Jared Calhoun, Utah State men's basketball head coach, for just another minute or two here on the Sean O'Connell Show. All right, so next up for you is the Wolfpack of Nevada. That is a road game for your Aggie squad. What is Nevada best at?
Well, we played them on the road, so we'll have them here in the Spectrum on Wednesday.
Excuse me.
We beat them. Yeah, no, you're fine. We beat them by 5. It's going to be a very, very difficult game. Steve Alford, obviously a Hall of Fame player, Hall of Fame coach, just does a tremendous job. They're big, they're physical, they have star power. You know, we have to be ready to go. You know, we're coming off a loss. How do we respond to a little adversity? We've had good practices, but until you play in the game, you got to see how guys respond and understand. We have about 20-something practices left. There'll be a bracket here soon. You know, we're not too far off from March Madness. We've got 13 league games left. Everyone matters. And we got to come out with a sense of urgency.
That's wild to think about, Coach. 20-something practices before we're into tournament time.
That's it. Yeah, the countdown has begun. And, you know, you run out of games. You run out of opportunities to show that committee, you know, why you should be in. And right now we're in a good position, but you're never safe in college basketball. There's a ton of parity. So I think it's more about us than our opponent at this point. We've got to prepare ourselves night in and night out because this league is really, really difficult, as most are around the country.
How much growth and improvement is realistic once you get to this point of a season? Are most teams who they're going to be, barring, I guess, return from injury or injury or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's a mindset. I think, you know, a lot of sports in life is really mental. You know, how you respond to things. There's going to be a lot of games that are going to come down to late game situations, how you execute, you know, where's your mind at going into the game. Momentum is a big thing, right? We've had great momentum. You know, we start off 10-0, set the school record, you know, most wins in a row, and build some real momentum, real belief, won some big games. And, you know, we got to continue to do that. You know, we got to play our brand of basketball. We've got to defend home court, which is really important. We have not played great at home. We need to change that because we have 7 home games coming up out of our 13. So we got to be ready to go.
Notre Dame or Ohio State in the national championship tonight, Coach?
Oh, that's an easy one, Ohio State. I've been an Ohio State football fan for my entire life growing up in Ohio, and, you know, just love the Buckeyes. So I will be locked in, and I think they'll win by at least 10.
I thought you were going to say that. My producer, James, is sitting in the behind the glass with a Buckeyes hat, a Buckeyes hoodie, a Buckeyes jersey, and Buckeyes socks on. So
tell him to call me if he ever wants tickets here in the Spectrum. I love to treat him to a game. And, yeah, we love Buckeye Nation. It's going to be a fabulous game. I think Freeman is the real deal. I love Ryan Day, what he's had to overcome with the, you know, losing one game a year, the criticism, and now playing for the title. But I think it's going to be a great game.
I imagine you're never on the let's fire Ryan Day train when he loses one game. That's probably not your bag.
No. I support him. And actually, I've got a little bit of hate mail myself here the last couple of days. So when you lose, you know, people are very quick to point the finger at you, which is fine. It comes with the territory, but it would be pretty awesome to see him overcome that and get a national championship.
Let's start a new segment on the show, James, where Coach Calhoun and Coach Young and Coach Smith, whoever, sends us the hate mail. They just forward it to us, and we just read it on the air. Coach, can we get that going? That'd be fun.
Yeah, I could send you a voicemail. The voicemail I got the other day was really good to the office. Yeah, I'm sure your viewers would enjoy that one.
Let's do it. That's perfect. Coach, good luck. Thanks for your time today. Appreciate you.
Anytime. Thank you.
Jared Calhoun, Utah State men's basketball head coach. Hey, whoever's up there in Cache Valley sending angry voicemails to the head coach of your 16-2 Utah State Aggie basketball team, go grab yourself a little soda, maybe a cookie from Swig. Relax, okay? 16. It's college basketball. You can lose a few games.
Yeah, 16-2, and he's what, the fourth or fifth coach in the last 6 or 7 years, and he's got a 16-2 start.
He's gonna win 20 games plus this year. All right, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that you're gonna get more than 20 wins this year. You're gonna be a tournament team, and you're already delivering the hate voicemails. What's going on in Cache Valley?
Voicemail's even better, Coach. By the way, if he's still listening, because we can play that audio on the air.
Hey, how great do you feel now that you've got at least one powerful Buckeye fan with you?
I was gonna get in your ear when he said he started at Youngstown State. I was gonna have you ask if it was Tressel was the AD.
Obscure
Youngstown
Mascot
State.
Challenge, Youngstown State.
Actually don't know.
Oh, James,
I know
you're gonna be bad at the Obscure Mascot
I'm gonna
Challenge.
be bad. Do you know Youngstown State?
Yes, because it's very unique.
Okay.
The Penguins.
The Penguins. Okay. I knew it wasn't Bobcats. That came to my head, but I know that's Ohio.
Maybe during the break you could look up why in the hell Youngstown State is the Penguins.
Maybe maybe it snows a lot there. I don't know.
Must have had like a zoo with a famous penguin or something. Why would you, if you're a team in? There's not even penguins in the North Pole, right?
No, it's just South Pole.
It's only the South Pole. There's no regionally. It makes no sense there would be any penguin.
You do have the Pittsburgh Penguins hockey.
Also, why? Another, why would you choose penguins? They're not like a ferocious beast. They're not even cool looking.
Hey, that's what they said about the Ducks and Mighty Ducks at the start.
That one made
movie,
sense,
okay?
Though. By the way, all due respect to the Penguins, the local Penguins. If you're listening at like Sequest or if you're down at the aquarium, if you're one of the Penguins, I'm not trying to offend you. You're entertaining and you're very cute, but not necessarily what you would want to name a team after.
Baseball team, Utah Penguins?
No.
The Hogle Penguins?
Don't do it. ESPN 792.1 FM running a cash kickoff right now. Time for your shot to win $1,000 to pay the bills. Text the word success to 508-777-1000 for a chance to win. That's success to 508-777-1000. This is a nationwide contest. Hot lunch is coming next on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 792.1 FM.
Slot right, single man left on 2nd down and 10. Jackson in the gun with Hill to his right. Lamar looks over the defense, play clock down to 5. Jackson has a high snap go off his hands. He collects it, pumps to his right, moving right, lost the football, picked up by the Bills, racing the other way to the 40, to the 30, and tackled down at the 25. Von Miller scooped it up just as Hill made a touchdown-saving tackle. That one came up high off the hands of Jackson. He had it, tried to avoid the defense, and then DeMar Hamlin knocked it out. Von Miller scooped it up. The second turnover of the first half for the Ravens.
Ryan Radke on the call there, courtesy of Westwood One. Von Miller and the scoop, but not quite score. Big fumble return, setting up a go-ahead touchdown for the Bills. They ended up winning 27-25 over the Ravens last night in the divisional round. And I've actually, the conversation about Lamar Jackson today has been mostly reasonable. I appreciate that.
Just wait.
He's an incredible player, but you're right.
It'll probably get worse, but yeah, I appreciate it too.
You know why it's going to get worse, James? Is because as the years progress, not even the years, with how fast the news cycle spins now, as the days and weeks progress, the number that's going to jump out to people is going to be his playoff wins and losses record, right? And he's got a losing record in the playoffs. He once again has come up short. He made the plays necessary at the end of the game, made the throw for the touchdown, put the ball on target to Mark Andrews for the 2-point conversion that would have tied the game. No one is going to tell you what Mark Andrews, when he retires or next year or heading into this offseason, no one's going to tell you what Mark Andrews' career playoff record is because he plays tight end. He's not in control of that. Even though he was in control of either catching that ball or not, he was in control of holding on to the big pass that he fumbled earlier in the game. And I'm not trying to pile on Mark Andrews. He's having a bad enough day. But Lamar Jackson is the one, when somebody drops the tying score, Lamar Jackson is the one whose legacy is going to be dissected based on what we talked about last week, wins and losses, especially playoff wins and losses. And I tried to construct a poll question, and it was just too convoluted, but I wanted to at least bring it to the air. We know that it doesn't come down to actually one play in these games. We know that it's not one play that decides the game one way or another, that it's an accumulation of every circumstance that has happened in the game that allows you to be in a position to tie the game with time winding down. And by the way, you still would have had to give the ball back to Josh Allen with over a minute to play. So it's not like tying that game is definitely going to win you the game.
Yeah, and Tyler Bass was on it, kicking field goals for the Bills too. He hasn't quite been as accurate a kicker, the most accurate kicker of all time this year. So, but he was on it last night, so I felt pretty good about the Bills' chances to get that at least a game-winning field goal.
I think they had 2 timeouts in over a minute.
Yeah,
so they probably could have, but you would have given yourself more of a shot, right? And I was gutted for Mark Andrews because when I moved from defense to offense, not particularly sure-handed, this guy right here, James. And when I was playing fullback / whatever the tight end fullback position was at Utah, and then more of a traditional fullback at Weber State, like sometimes you were supposed to run that exact route. It's the worst one. It sucks. You're just flat. You're running parallel to the line of scrimmage. You're maybe 2 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. You're looking back over your shoulder. You have no idea where the defender is, right? The ball comes at you at a weird angle. It looks like a pedestrian catch. For him, it should be because he's in the NFL. For me, it never was. I dropped that pass a bunch of times.
You had the alligator arms, fullback arms.
It just sucks, right? It sucks. So I felt super bad for him. The ball was where it needed to be. Lamar Jackson, it doesn't come down to that one play only, right? He turned the ball over twice in the game himself. So it's probably not unfair to be like, hey, he's not his best. You're not getting the best version of Lamar in these like must-win playoff games. But I feel so bad for him because in that one, he had shaken the bad feelings, the bad moments off of his back, and he drove the team down. He put the ball on the money in really unfavorable weather conditions, and he had an opportunity to at least tie it and turn the ball over to the Bills, give the ball to, the Bills and let his defense try and win him a football game. And instead, today people are being nice about it. When it comes up at the beginning of next season and you're handicapping who the best quarterbacks in the league are and stuff, everyone's going to be like, well, Lamar Jackson, 3-time MVP. And then what's the counterpoint going to be, James?
What's he doing in January?
But what did he do in the playoffs?
Yeah.
He lost another playoff game.
And
I promise you, when that conversation comes up, all right, Stephen A. Smith is going to be like, yeah, but what is he going to do for you in the playoffs? No one's counterpoint is going to be like, Mark Andrews dropped the pass to tie the game. No one's going to say that.
I could see, now that you say that, I can picture Dan Orlovsky saying something like that, but just about everyone else.
Dan Orlovsky is going to be the head coach of like a JUCO team.
Yeah, he's not going to be there next year.
He's not going to be there. All right. So it's something.
Orlovsky's like, hey, he didn't run out of the back of the end zone, okay? So he did pretty good.
It's a callback to what we were discussing on Friday, that these quarterbacks, like the wins as a quarterback stat, yes, sometimes it makes sense. And this game is the perfect example of why you can maybe use it as a quarterback stat, but also why you shouldn't use it as a quarterback stat. Because, yes, he made mistakes that cost the team. That fumble, that highlight that you played, the sound you played coming in, that was all Lamar Jackson.
So costly, too.
That was Lamar Jackson being Lamar Jackson, which, of course, usually works out for you, usually gets you positive results. That was a guy who should have fallen on the football. As soon as the snap was bad.
Take the 12-yard loss or whatever it was.
Just fall on the football. You're driving. You're dominating. Things are looking good.
Even if you punt that drive, you're tied, it's fine.
The crowd is relatively silent at Orchard Park. Like, all these reasons, you just got to fall on that ball. But what does he try to do? He posts his hand on the ground. He tries to pick up the frozen, slippery football in his palm to make things happen. A little bit of contact knocks it loose. Like, fall on that ball. But in the regular season, you never want him to just fall on that ball, because he's the guy who can pick it up and okey-doke somebody and spin out of it and find someone downfield or use his own legs to extend the drive. And that's the magic of Lamar. But also in this scenario, and again, all of it gets lost. These details get lost as the conversation progresses. The tragedy of Lamar is that backyard football ability also sometimes leads him to try to do too much and to make an extra play that he doesn't have to make. And in that case, it was costly. And now the Ravens season is over.
By the way, if you're watching that game, you remember Chris Collinsworth almost lose his mind when Josh Allen looked like he was going to try to pitch something on was that their last score. They had to settle for a field goal instead, and instead of doing the tush push, they did from a run from shotgun, and he gets stuffed at the line. But you could see Josh Allen's eyes. He's like, hey, maybe I can pitch this back. He's not able to, or else we have the exact same situation. It's maybe a scoop and score touchdown for the Ravens. So it's like, it wasn't just Lamar that's thinking that way out of those two quarterbacks. One was just fortunate enough to not have that be an option, or else we're talking about Josh Allen as the guy who can't win.
And by the way, Josh Allen had a subpar day.
He did.
16 of 22, 127 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He did only take the one sack. But Lamar Jackson, you could make an argument, outplayed Josh Allen in this game, and still Josh Allen gets the win, and Josh Allen doesn't have to deal with the talking idiots like me.
At least for another week.
Yeah, not for another week.
If they fall short against the Chiefs again, I fully expect he'll get the same treatment.
Also, the last point here in the hot lunch, all right? Lamar Jackson can get tackled out of bounds, and Patrick Mahomes cannot get sneezed on out of bounds.
Well, he started the tackle while he was still in bounds,
Who was the world's expert there? Was it
Terry McCauley.
Terry McCauley. And Tony Romo goes silent.
Oh, no, sorry. It was CBS, wasn't it? It was Sterator. Yeah.
It was Tony Romo.
And it was Romo that was beside himself.
Just pause this for a second. Because, again, there's broadcasting etiquette. You don't want to, when you bring in the rules expert and the rules expert gives you his answer, you're not supposed to, as the play-by-play guy or the color analyst, be like, actually, that's wrong.
Yeah, you don't
want to undermine their credibility. But Tony Romo, you could hear him kind of pause and be like, oof, am I going to say this? Am I going to say this? I got to say it. He's just like, no, that was roughing. That was ridiculous.
Steratore. By the way, Steratore, I love. He's underrated in actually giving an opinion too with it. You heard him later in the game when there was a questionable PI call. How he said they were both locked up. I would have liked to see a no call there, guys. Like that's like good job, Gene Steratore, being different from other rules analysts that don't want to criticize officials.
All right. That's the end of the hot lunch. We're going to start hour number 2 with Scott Mitchell, the Utah football legend, longtime NFL quarterback. I want his thoughts on Lamar Jackson, on Josh Allen, on what the heck happened to his former team, the Detroit Lions. We'll get to all of it on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome to hour number 2 of the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 792.1 FM are proud parts of Utah's ESPN radio network. We also welcome in Scott Mitchell, the Utah football legend, color analyst on Utah football radio broadcast, longtime NFL quarterback, and a guy who's going to be filling it. I'm going to be out traveling to Dubai on Wednesday, and on Friday I got fights going on, and so Scott Mitchell is going to be calling my show both of those days. He joins me now on your home of the Utes. Scott, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to be with you, Sean. I'll miss you. Can't say I've ever been to Dubai. Sounds like a fun place.
Yeah, I've never been to Dubai either. I took 3 trips to Saudi Arabia this past year in 2024. This one we're starting off in Dubai, which is actually an even longer flight. That's crazy to me. But
Wow.
yeah, looking forward to it. Should be fun. Got some great fights to call this weekend. So we'll get to that at some point on the show. That's not why you're here. That's not what we're going to talk about. NFL playoffs, the divisional round. I'm not doing this to be mean, but what happened to your former team, the Detroit Lions? I thought that they were the team of destiny this year.
Well, they've had so many guys injured over the course of this season, and quite frankly, I think it's impressive and speaks to the coaches, the players that they have, that they've gotten this far. I mean, they've been decimated on their defense with guys, and you could kind of see it where they had no ability to really stop the Commanders. Jaden Daniels did not play like a rookie, I mean, at all. And I think that's always the most interesting thing to me about the playoffs is there's a different kind of pressure. And some people just rise to it. They're unaffected by it, and others aren't. You know, and I've been in playoff games and felt that pressure before, and you think you're able to handle it. You think you're prepared for it, and it's a different kind of thing, you know. And you have to gain a lot of experience doing it because it's really hard. It's really, really hard to win in the NFL. And so when you see teams that do well in the playoffs, it's a remarkable thing. I mean, what the Kansas City Chiefs are doing, what Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills are doing, and Jaden Daniels, it's an impressive thing. But that pressure, and Jared Goff, he's a guy that's been to the Super Bowl, and really he's a guy that, in fact, the first Super Bowl he was in, Sean, he goes, man, this was bigger than me. I mean, he flat out admitted it. He goes, this was a different thing, and it was bigger than what I was prepared for. But it felt like he kind of got past that, and he had some tough turnovers in that game that contributed to the loss. But I think a lot of people really were pulling for the Detroit Lions. I know I was. I mean, it's just been so down out and downtrodden, but it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to win and to win in the playoffs, no matter what your record was during the season. If you're home, you're away. It's just a hard thing to do.
In all pro sports, in football certainly, I always see when these it seems like it might be your year and then it doesn't happen. And from an optimistic standpoint, you want to say, well, there's always next year, because that is true. But maybe better injury luck next year allows this Vikings team to have similar regular season success, but more playoff success. As an athlete in these situations, knowing that, there's certain guys that are going to be free agents, there's contracts that are up, things like that. When you don't make good on the promise of the team, when you don't realize your full potential in that locker room, what's the feeling like?
Well, it sucks. I don't know that there's a moment of relief, and it's this way because you put so much effort and so much energy to prepare your body every season, your mind, and the grind of the season where you're focused every day in meetings and studying an opponent, and it's every week, and that when you step on the field, that you're gonna sell out. You're gonna give it all you have because you don't have the luxury of 82 games. You don't have the luxury of load management. You don't have the luxury of 162 season in baseball, these other sports, and you don't have the luxury of, hey, it's a series. We got to win the series. It's like it's do or die. Every game is sudden death, and when you're under that kind of pressure and you put your body through all of that, it's a massive letdown. By the way, it's a massive letdown when you win it. People are like, okay, we won a Super Bowl, and it's like, now what? And you're just exhausted. It's a great thrill. It's something I think you appreciate later on down the road as you reflect back on kind of what you've been doing. A lot of guys say it's a lot better the second time. The first time is just a blur, and so going back, they kind of can enjoy the moment a whole lot more. But yeah, you lose, you win. It's a massive letdown. I know for me, I really like the routine. And when all of a sudden that routine's gone and you're just kind of free to do whatever, you're kind of like, oh, okay, what do I do? It's a weird dynamic that happens in pro sports when the season's over, no matter when or what. It's just a weird, odd, almost a numb time.
Scott Mitchell's my guest talking NFL playoffs. We'll get to some college football as the national championship is tonight, Notre Dame and Ohio State. You can hear right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM, where you're home for the college football playoff and for the NFL playoffs on Utah's number one sports talk. So the primetime game last night, Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson. I mean, this is must-see television. It ended up being a wild and crazy game. I never get an opportunity, or rarely get an opportunity, to talk to someone of your standing, of your experience, about this thing that we discussed on Friday. Quarterbacks are given way too much credit and way too much blame. Lamar Jackson specifically has this whole narrative surrounding him that, hey, he can't win in the playoffs. And he didn't make great plays in the first half necessarily. He made a couple of great plays and a couple of boneheaded plays is probably a better way to say that. He turned the ball over twice himself, but at the end of the game, he drives down, you get the touchdown pass, and then you put the ball where it needs to be for Mark Andrews. As a quarterback processing a loss like this one, Scott, what is that like for Lamar Jackson, knowing that you made some mistakes that cost your team? You also made the plays necessary to put your team exactly where they needed to be, and somebody else didn't do it. To be the QB processing that, what does it feel like?
Okay, I'll just tell you, it's no different today for Josh Allen than it is Lamar Jackson.
Okay,
because no matter whether you win or lose, you're always going, I could have done better. Always. It's the way you're taught, the way you're trained, the way you work and prepare every week, and the way you get better. You know, Josh Allen's probably sitting watching game film today, going, "Man, we're just lucky we won today." Yesterday, and Lamar Jackson's going, "Man, if I'd have just we shouldn't have lost that game." You know, it's really a weird thing where even if you have a great performance, you always look back on it and go, it should have been a whole lot better. And that's the good thing for Josh Allen, because he gets to keep going, right? And he gets to go, okay, you know, we got a shot right here to go to the Super Bowl. And that's a cool feeling to have. Lamar Jackson goes, man, I got to go through this all over again. I got to put my body through this. I got to put my, what coaches, what players are going to be here? Are we going to have the same fire? Are we going to have the same culture, the same continuity that we had this last season? And it's just hard, and so you have to live with that. Now, Lamar does have, I've got next year, I've got, okay, I'm really going to, turn the screws and really get after this even more than I have, because I love Lamar Jackson. I think he's a guy that's really developed into someone who can throw the football. That was a tough environment, and he gave his team a chance to win in the end. And and that's all you can ask for. So I really like his game, but it's the mental torture that happens to you, win or lose. And the only saving grace, for Josh Allen is he won, and so he gets to go on. I mean, Josh Allen, if you remember, a few years ago, the gut-wrenching loss to the Kansas City Chiefs at home in the play, so he knows that pain of defeat, and I think it's part of what helps these players mature and develop kind of a winning mindset and really understanding what it takes to win. I mean, that's really where the Kansas City Chiefs are. They may not be the best team, but they're the best team at winning. And there's something to be said about it, because the guy that's the most shocking, Sean, is Jaden Daniels.
Unbelievable.
This guy has no fear. He's Yeah, go into Detroit, best team in the league, and no problem. Like I don't think people can really grasp how amazing and how special that really is. And it's a lot how Patrick Mahomes started his career out with that same kind of swagger, that same kind of confidence, that same production. It's been extremely the most impressive thing to me of anything happening in the NFL this year is Jaden Daniels.
When a guy drops a touchdown pass or drops a pass that would have changed the game, what does he say to his starting quarterback?
I'll just tell you right now, the guy he's just sick. Like he's just sick. It's a horrible thing, to first have a fumble and then drop the pass to tie the game on the 2-point and that guy is, someone needs to hang out with him for a while because that's just a painful thing and because you feel like it's all on you. It's one thing to be like to lose a game, but to lose it where it's out in the open, if you make these plays, you're going to win the game. And that's a hard thing because you feel like you've let everyone down. You feel like you've let your whole entire team down. You feel like you've let everyone down. And good teams will say and know, and good coaches will know, there are a lot of plays in this game that had an impact on its outcome. It's just it's unfortunate that yours happened at the end. And so that to me, I think that to me is painful to watch. And my heart just goes out to that guy because I'm sure he's just sick about it. I'm sure he's like inconsolable. There's really nothing anyone can say to him probably for a month that's going to help him at all. He just kind of has to process it. And you cry in your milk for a minute and you get back up and you go back to work and that's what you do. But that's kind of what's actually great about the NFL. Not that these bad things happen, but that the drama of it all. It's because it's so final. It's just one game, and it just I love that about the intrigue and the excitement and the way it turns out. It really is that do or die situation.
Saquon Barkley has another 200-yard game, and we know that football is very much a quarterback-driven game, and this is a quarterback-driven league. But he has helped carry the Philadelphia Eagles to the precipice of another Super Bowl trip. You played with one of the greatest running backs of all time, maybe the greatest running back of all time. Your thoughts on what it is for Philadelphia to have a weapon like that right now?
I'm sure it's even sweeter because they got him from the New York Giants.
Correct.
And and that's all I think about is watching him play so great. And you go, the Giants, let him go to your division rival, and of all places, Philadelphia. It's like, those two teams hate each other like nobody else. And I'm sure that the Eagles are just rubbing it in the Giants' faces because they rub it in people's faces better than anyone in the NFL, maybe in all of sports. The worst fans, but the best fans if you're a Philadelphia Eagle. Saquon may have saved the running back positions, and the reality is the league has a way of finding talent, and talent emerges whatever positions it's at, and that's what Saquon is a talent. And you also were in a situation where the conditions kind of favored running the football a little bit more and having a guy who can really run it and be explosive like he was. It's a really special thing. Derrick Henry is a guy for Baltimore, kind of helped him a lot. And then you have Josh Allen that's kind of a runner. But having that guy like that and that talent that comes out, and to the credit of the coaches, to say we see where we have an advantage, we see what his skill set is, and we're going to figure out a way to make that work. Now, I'm just telling you, as great as runners are, you're still going to have to make throws. Jalen Hurts is going to have to make throws to get to the Super Bowl. He's going to have to make throws to win a Super Bowl. And any of these players, it's the quarterback will ultimately drive and is a huge factor in the success of a team winning a Super Bowl. And so can they do that ultimately? Because Washington is going to go. We got to figure out how we got to stop Saquon. I mean, they're gonna come into this game going, and if they do, then do you have an answer? Can you throw the football? Can you make the plays? And that remains to be seen.
Ohio State, Notre Dame tonight for a college football national championship, capping off the first 12-team expanded college football playoff. 2 blue bloods. I mean, if you're a television network, you couldn't have asked for a more interesting matchup with great storylines all over the place. Where does this game come down to in your mind? What's the biggest key?
Oh, boy. I think a lot of it is it feels like they're kind of fairly evenly matched. I would have said, Notre Dame is really – they kind of both been through the fire, the crucible of having to go and play the extra game, and it speaks volumes of where they are. Wait, it's Ohio State. No. I was thinking of Texas. I'm sorry. No, it's Ohio State.
It's Ohio State and Notre Dame. You're right, though. They both had to play. They both had to play an extra game. Yeah. They both had to. Neither of these teams made it to a conference championship. Obviously, Notre Dame can't. Ohio State did not get that bye. So
I think it's weird. Well, I think it says where college football is. And college football is, I believe, it's changing. It's like it's kind of its seat of power, right? Where it's getting spread out more, and it feels like it's an Ohio State year, right? It just kind of feels like it's them, and I think they're better. I think they're better offensively. I think they're better defensively, but Notre Dame has just kind of found a way to win, and so much of it is, you have Ryan Day, who's under so much pressure, and the expectations at Ohio State are massive, and people are like, this dude should be fired, and all of these different things, and so it's can Ryan Day get out of his own way and let his really amazing, talented team win? I think that, as weird as that sounds, that to me is kind of the biggest question mark of the day.
Well, we get to watch it tonight, and we get to listen to it right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. So if you're out and about, you're driving around, and you want to listen to this game or you want to stream it, you can go to ESPN700sports.com. You can download the app and listen to the national radio call college football national championship game tonight in Atlanta, Ohio State and Notre Dame. Scott Mitchell, always appreciate your insight. Thank you today, and thanks in advance for filling in for me on Wednesday and Friday.
I look forward to it. You're welcome.
That's Scott Mitchell, Utah football legend, longtime NFL quarterback. You know what? The most interesting, he always says a lot of interesting things. The most interesting thing there was he was talking about how it's not that much different for Josh Allen today than it is for Lamar Jackson.
Stood out to me too.
Obviously, Josh Allen has a much better feeling in his belly because his team still has it all to play for. Now, he's got to go up head-to-head against Patrick Mahomes again, who's
been his kryptonite,
which I'm sure
the league's kryptonite.
Yeah, he's an intimidating matchup, and you're right. It's not just Patrick Mahomes. It's the Chiefs. It's the league's whole matchup. It's not just Patrick Mahomes. But, Lamar Jackson, what could I have done better? How should I have done things differently? Only he has to wait until next August before he can start trying to do that. Josh Allen, what can I do better? What should I have done differently? He gets to answer that question next week.
Yeah, and after he said that, it got me thinking differently about Josh Allen's post-game, like on the field interview. Tracy Wolfson, CBS, great sideline reporters, asked him how's the win feel, basically, and he shouted out his defense, and that I just thought, okay, he's given his defense some shine because they stepped up big in this game, relatively low scoring game. He's thrown his defense a bone, but after hearing Scott say that, I wonder if that was more of he knew he didn't play very well. He knew he didn't play near as well as he could have played, and so he's saying, take the spotlight off me, put it on my guys on the other side of the ball who played really well, despite everyone in the world saying that's their biggest weakest link.
All right, I want to switch our focus to the national championship game tonight. Just ask Scott Mitchell about it. I think Notre Dame has a great chance of winning this game. They are big underdogs. I think they've got a great chance of winning this game, but there is a caveat here. If Notre Dame wants to win the first national championship in, 45 years, they have to do so by not being the Notre Dame that got them here. I'll tell you what I mean next on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
throws the lob to Keita, can't get it to go.
Nice defense right there.
Rebound, Lawson Lovering ahead. Ezra Asar on the attack, dunks it down with 2 hands. Ezra Asar with a big-time finish.
Bring the joy, Ez.
That sound courtesy of the Utah Sports Radio Network. Bill Riley on the call. Ezra Asar, big dunk in a 73-72 overtime win for your Runnin' Utes over BYU this past Saturday night at the Huntsman Center. 26 points for Ezra Asar in that game.
Bring the joy. I like that. Our guy Sean Mooney at the end there, too.
Next up for the Runnin' Utes, top 10 ranked Houston team. And actually, that game just got postponed.
Yeah, they're moved Wednesday night now.
Wednesday is the plan for now.
Snow in Houston. Snow in the forecast tomorrow.
It's okay. So when you hear a city like Houston saying, I need to postpone these things because of severe weather, it might be actual severe weather or it might be an inch of snow.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to disparage the city officials or make light of what could end up being a very difficult situation, a very dangerous situation, if indeed like a major snow squall comes through or, something life-threatening happens down there in Houston. But it is the South, effectively, and an inch of snow constitutes severe weather. So it might just be like, hey, guys, we don't have de-icing trucks at the airport. We don't have salt for the roads. We don't have snow plows. So that 1 inch of snow that's going to melt by 11 a.m., that is severe weather down here. Could be the case.
I say it's probably snow because I looked up the weather in Houston because I'd heard that there was some kind of potentially severe weather thing, and it looks like, and I didn't see anything beyond that there's snow in the forecast tomorrow. So it could just be that there's a little bit of snow. And as we've talked about off air, OC, we laugh about that kind of stuff around here, and people in Minnesota laugh about that kind of stuff, Wisconsin, whatever. But we have snow plows. We have plows that have salt, rock salt to melt the ice. Places like Houston, Jeff Schwartz was talking about Charlotte a couple weeks ago, gearing up for a couple inches of snow. They don't have that kind of stuff, so it might as well be 10 inches of snow that we might get here.
85% chance of precipitation, and right now they are calling that precipitation snow in Houston. So T's and P's to all you folks down there in Houston. That's a city, by the way, that does actually face real severe weather. Like, they get hit by the whole hurricane thing.
Yeah, they're close to the Gulf of Mexico there, yeah.
Anyway, so Utah Running Utes basketball game postponed. We'll have it for you on Wednesday night, it sounds like. National championship being played in Atlanta. That's a dome stadium, so even if there was weather, you wouldn't have to worry about it. No weather today in Atlanta, although the South this year has been hit with some
the Hawks.
fronts.
The Hawks have had to postpone some games because of some snow. Yeah, so Atlanta's been hit with some weird snowy weather too.
Notre Dame right now is an underdog in this national championship game. All right. The line has moved just a little bit. It stayed pretty mellow, pretty consistent. Right now, ESPN shows Ohio State as 8.5-point favorites. First of all, Notre Dame against the spread, take that all day. All right. The over-under for this game set at 45.5. If you believe that these teams are going to perform up to the level that they have all season long, this is the number 1 and number 2 scoring defenses in the nation. Together, they give up a combined like 28 points a game. And yet the belief from Vegas is that 45 is where you're going to set this. I probably would hammer the under on this one, and that's probably why it's going to be like a 52-48 game, because if I ever do wager, it influences the universe. It is the butterfly effect, and that's what happens. Ohio State is an 8.5-point favorite. Notre Dame really does have a shot in this game. Look, yes, they're down a starting tackle, but Ohio State has its own issues with guys being banged up. Of course, you've got Jack Sawyer, who's playing his best football right now, and you've got JT Tuimoloau, who is an absolute monster. So there's no rest for the weary if you're a Notre Dame offensive lineman, especially a backup who ends up being pressed into service for the second half of a semifinal game and now for this national championship game. Look, it's an unenviable position to be in. But Marcus Freeman and his coaching staff have showed us game after game after game, ever since that Northern Illinois loss, that they are capable of making the necessary adjustments, doing the smart thing as coaches. I'm really curious to see if they do one of the things that I think they need to in order to win a national championship game tonight. Notre Dame plays more man defense than any team in the country. They really believe in their defensive backfield. And for good reason. Christian Gray and company, phenomenal. Great players across the board. Nickel, when you got to run a nickel package out there, if you got to have 5 defensive backs, if you've got to play dime, you're deep enough. Your base defense, they've performed incredibly well against the pass, and they've done so with these man looks. Now, I fully acknowledge that part of my feeling here for Notre Dame is also based on what we've seen from Utah football in the past, when you're really good at man defense and then you go up against a team that just has a different level of athleticism than you're used to, has a different level of speed, and has multiple breakout star potential players like Ohio State does in their wide receiving core. Utah famously, years back, the Michael Pittman, not the Micah Pittman, the Michael Pittman game against USC, they just continued to play press man, and they got run by. Play after play after play, score after score, big play after big play. When you're so good at playing man defense and you've had so much success playing man defense, you want to be yourself against teams, even teams that have a different level of competition for your defensive backs. Nobody plays more man D than Notre Dame does. Number 1 in the country in snaps played in a man defensive look. Marcus Freeman was asked about this. He said, we're gonna take a look at it. We'll make some, the coy coach's response. The players were asked about it as well. We're going to be who we are. I don't think you be who you are and have a lot of success. And I'm thinking specifically of Jeremiah Smith and guys like that, and Emeka Egbuka, and the individuals you have to match up with in this game. We saw it in the Rose Bowl, right? You do things the way that you think you've done them and been successful all year. Great. Ohio State is a different animal in the wide receiver room, and they have been for a decade. That, to me, is the key to this game. Notre Dame, by all means, come out in your base defense, play your man looks, but be ready to make the adjustment. Be ready, and when I say ready, I mean that you have practiced it in the almost 2 weeks leading up to this game, to where your players are not panicking if the man D isn't looking right, if the press coverage isn't working right. And then a coach is like, all right, guys, we're going to run the shell zone. We're going to do, we're going to roll safety help over. If that's not something you've talked about, you've practiced, you've studied on film, then the players are going to interpret that as a panic response. They're going to feel panicked about it. They're not going to have practiced it. They're not going to be ready to execute it at a high level. So when I say Notre Dame needs to be ready to make the adjustment, ready as in the last 10 days ready.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's unreasonable to ask a team, a very successful team, very good on defense, that kind of a team like Notre Dame has been this year, to completely change what they do going into the most important game of the year, the national championship game. But I believe that it's more than reasonable to ask, let's practice a couple of different looks, that zone looks that we can mix in at different times, that maybe will throw off Will Howard and Ohio State a little bit, because they're expecting press man all game because that's Notre Dame, that's their identity, that's what they've been great at all year long. All of a sudden, in a couple of big moments, Notre Dame's going to they're going zone, giving you zone looks. That might be just the thing that can disrupt Ohio State's offense just enough for you to stay in this game and give yourselves a chance to win this game, because it's that cliche. Ohio State's offense is that NBA superstar. You can't stop them. You can only hope to contain them. That's what Notre Dame ought to be doing, because they shouldn't expect to be able to contain them enough with just the press man, even though they've been great at it.
To add to your point, if you change up your look, if you show one and then you end up actually playing another, the quarterback potentially could get the wrong read, right? And in that case, that's oftentimes in college football, especially when the ball's thrown to the wrong spot and you got a guy there and you turn the other team over, right? So 19 interceptions for Notre Dame so far this year. If you can get one or two in this game, you're giving yourself a much better chance to win. Because if you let this be a game where it's a mistake-free football game for both teams, I think Ohio State's better. I don't think they're 8.5 points better, but I think they are better. If Notre Dame can confuse Will Howard a little bit, easier said than done, get him to throw a ball that he thinks is safe because he read the wrong thing. Now we're in business. If you're the Notre Dame Fighting Irish defense, and a short field would do Riley Leonard and that offense a lot of favors against a very, very good Ohio State defense. And when I say very, very good, I mean the number one scoring defense, the number one total defense, the number one passing defense in the country this year, Ohio State. And
yeah.
Notre Dame is right there. Notre Dame is number 2 in passing defense. Notre Dame is number 2 in scoring defense. Notre Dame's way behind in rushing defense, which makes me nervous for this game. Ohio State is the number 3 rushing defense in the country as well this season. Their numbers are ridiculous right now on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah, it sounds insane given how they've played in the CFP so far, especially to say that Ohio State's strength is on the defensive side of the ball. But it really is. Like the Ohio State's best unit is defense. As much as Will Howard and that receiving core, as much love as they get, their defense is the best in the country, and in some categories it's not close. That's why even if Will Howard struggles a little bit, Ohio State will be in this game and likely win this game because their defense is good enough to win them games on their own.
I'm going to give you a little factoid. Might be a trivia question later in the show. You never know. I'm going to give you a little factoid here, James. Do you think this is going to be a close game?
Yeah, I
could
think,
it come down to a situation like Baltimore and Buffalo last night?
I'm with you. I don't know it'll be that close, but I'm with you that Notre Dame will probably cover the spread, which would be a 1-score game if they do.
I think it is going to be very close. I think this is going to be like a one-possession, come down to the wire type, who gets the ball last sort of game. Sometimes 2-point conversions come into play. Ohio State has given up 3 2-point conversions this year. Notre Dame only has allowed 1.
Whatever you got to tell yourself to feel better, OC.
I chose to give you that stat instead of telling you that Notre Dame's defense in the run game, Notre Dame's rushing defense, is ranked 41st in the country. The good news is Ohio State doesn't have 2 great running backs. Oh.
Shoot.
Did you see the numbers for Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins? They're like identical. It's not a 1-2 punch, right? Because a 1-2 punch is a jab,
one
then a
and
cross.
one.
It's like it's 2 power punches.
Yeah.
It's 2 guys that tonight are going to go over 1,000 yards rushing on the season. 2. It's like one. I think one of them has 967 yards. One of them has 960 yards. They are truly like twin backs. That is obnoxious. Ohio State's way too talented. I don't like it. I do want to switch gears. I want to talk a little bit about Utah football. I had dinner on Saturday night with 3 defensive coaches, not at the University of Utah, but 3 defensive coaches that all had really, really nice things to say about Devin Dampier. I want to talk about this next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. I'm not trying to be intentionally mysterious. I just don't know whether coaches want people to know who they're talking about or what they're saying about other players. So I'm not going to tell you what school these coaches are from or whatever. Defensive coaches, though. I had dinner with 3 defensive coaches that are on staffs here in the state of Utah that had unbelievably nice things to say about Devin Dampier, not only as a player, because, of course, they watched all the film, they dissected all the film about Devin Dampier. And, I discussed this was a social visit. I wasn't trying to talk football as the number one task of the day. But, of course, when you're talking to coaches, inevitably you get to that. And we talked about Devin Dampier, and the word special came out of the mouth of every one of these guys. Is this breaking news for any of you? No. Is this something that, is going to generate a headline? Probably not. But when coaches talk about players and they say the word special, that's different. That's not like he's really good, right? There's a lingo to being a college football coach, to being a football coach in general. And when someone is talked about as special, that causes my ears to perk up. That gives me reason to pay even closer attention to what's about to be said. And when I prod these people about, well, Devin Dampier, though, 12 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, all 3 of these guys, again, defensive coaches, were dismissive of the idea that was all his fault or that it would not be an easy enough improvement under further tutelage by Jason Beck. And more importantly, and this was the number one point that every one of these guys brought up, he is going to be surrounded by much better players at the University of Utah than he was at New Mexico. All due respect to New Mexico, who had a solid season by their standards, certainly. It is a different level of athlete that distracts the defense, that draws the attention of a safety, that a corner actually has to run with and pay attention to. Every one of these 3 defensive coaches was pretty dismissive of the idea that it would be kind of an apples to apples. It'd be like a normal growth because they were saying he's surrounded by so much better players. He's going to be protected by much better offensive linemen. He's going to have better running backs. He's going to have weapons to throw to, including his own brother in Dorian Singer, potentially, if that extra year of eligibility can be granted. And that was their big point. He's going to be in such a better situation because everybody that New Mexico played last year was able to hone in on trying to stop Devin Dampier. You didn't have to double any of the wide receivers. You didn't have to bracket a single tight end. You didn't have to make sure that a linebacker was spying this special running back, even though they had quality running backs. It was all Devin Dampier that had the spies, and a lot of teams did spy him, especially in the back half of the season. So, again, there's no new numbers here. We know what it looks like. You've probably had an opportunity, if you're a hardcore Utah fan at this point, to track down some YouTube stuff of Devin Dampier while he was at New Mexico. But sitting with defensive coaches that know this guy and have studied this guy and are on a staff right now here in the state of Utah and having them say that kid is special and he is going to be a big problem, especially when you surround him with more talent. Room for optimism, reason for optimism for me, because these are not, as a defensive coach, even a defensive coach, like even Morgan Scalley is not predisposed to gas up a quarterback, right? Defensive coaches don't want to tell you how special offensive players are. On top of that, because it does matter to some people, I don't know if it matters to all of you, the testament that each of these individuals gave me to the character of the kid, just that he was a happy, positive person, smile on his face all the time, great teammate, all that stuff. This is a long way of saying it really sounds like Utah got a great one, like a really great one, who's going to be comfortable with the spotlight and is going to be exactly what you need in this offense, not just from an X's and O's standpoint, but from a leadership standpoint, because the vacuum left by the departure of someone like Cam Rising and the issues that surrounded the whole Cam Rising situation, that was probably the biggest problem for Utah. There was this crazy vacuum of charisma and leadership, and who do we follow? And am I supposed to be, putting my eggs in the Brandon Rose basket or the Isaac Wilson basket? And does this freshman have it figured out? I mean, it sounds like Devin Dampier is the guy that you just can't help but love. So that was encouraging for me to hear in a social context, James Peterson.
Yeah, that last part, that charisma that you're talking about that he brings, those intangibles that we talk about, is we don't know why we can't tell you exactly why someone's a great leader. We just know that everyone wants to follow that guy. That was a big part of why Utah's season kind of fell apart. Not so much just because they were missing the physical abilities of Cam Rising, but they were missing that from Cam Rising as well in the quarterback position. So that's huge. The other thing that stands out to me from what you just said is that you were out to dinner with these guys. You weren't grilling them for information. They just kind of casually started. You guys kind of casually started talking about Utah football, and this in a casual conversation, they had this kind of a glowing endorsement of Devin Dampier. Like, that stands out to me too. That means that they weren't forcing anything in this conversation with you. They were just saying, hey, this is what we think of this guy, and it happens to be really positive.
So fun to hear that. Fingers crossed that everything goes well for Utah in spring and then beyond, and obviously that a player of this caliber and potentially ability stays healthy, which has been an issue for the Utes. All right, take a quick one here. Jeff Schwartz is going to join me next. We'll talk about the divisional round of the NFL playoffs that's now in the books, and, of course, preview the national championship, which you can hear right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
2-yard line. That's where Philadelphia opens up. Handoff. It's Barkley running to the left. Barkley gets by everybody. Saquon Barkley is gone. Touchdown. On a snowy Sunday, Saquon Barkley has dominated for the Eagles. 28-15, Philly. He is at another level.
78-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter for Saquon Barkley. That sound courtesy of Westwood One. Ian Eagle on the call. It'll be Eagles Commanders in the NFC Championship game coming up Sunday. We'll have that for you right here on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Your home for the NFL playoffs and for the College Football National Championship. Tonight, we'll talk about both of those with our next guest, my good friend Jeff Schwartz. Schwartz, what's up?
How are you, buddy? How was your weekend?
It was a great weekend. A lot of fun. Great sport weekend. Utah beat BYU in basketball.
Ooh.
To the surprise of some, not to me, because as you know, I'm always accurate with my predictions. Great football playoffs in the NFL, and some really fun UFC fights on Saturday night as well. There was just a lot to watch. Now we get a national championship game tonight. We're spoiled for good sports right now, Jeff.
Is the Holy War as passionate in basketball?
Not quite. Not quite as passionate. But look, it was a near sellout crowd at the Huntsman Center. It's a big deal. Also, Utah Hockey Club got back in the win column. Clayton Keller with a 4-point night. I mean, come on, Jeff. I know you were watching that already, so I didn't have to tell you that.
Guy I work with at VSiN, his name is Jonathan Davis. He's the hockey guy. And he has a system this year that he's turning me on to that we've been playing for hockey. And it is first period overs and goal in the first 10 minutes for in games with teams that were shut out the game before.
Okay, wow.
It's hitting like 70%, both of them.
Wow.
So at some point, I imagine I've wagered on Utah Hockey Club. I don't know. I don't watch much of the games. Like tonight, I'm wagering on the Blue Jackets game. I don't even know who they're playing. I just wagered on the first period over 1.5, and goal in the first 10 minutes.
Because they got shut out in the last game?
Yes.
All right, wow.
Just blindly betting hockey. If you know anyone who needs help gambling and degenerate, I am one of them. No, you don't need help if you lose.
Okay.
So
what is it? Hope NY? Is that the gambling like
the hotline is afterwards? Yeah. Something I don't think the people in Utah will have to worry about quite often until there's sports books are probably going to be late to come to Utah.
Yeah, well, men will live on the moon and Mars before there's legal betting in the state of Utah, I think. But that's fine. All right. We played the highlight of Saquon Barkley coming in. He's had unbelievable playoff run so far. He had an unbelievable season. For a guy who played the offensive line position, how much do you enjoy watching the Eagles?
Oh, man, they are a lot of fun, because of just the way that they play up front, man. It's a team that is designed to be a hammer, right, and not be the nail. And when you look at the way they play and their offense, I mean, Jalen Hurts, they've won both these playoff games. He's thrown for less than 150 yards in both of them. It's just the way they're made up. They're made up to run the football and control the line of scrimmage. And you know this, a lot of times your team takes the personality of your offensive line, and this is what Philly is. They're very good on the defensive line too, right? And you look at Barkley and the way they run the football, and this is something that just this in the run game. First couple of runs in that game, right? 2 yards, 1 yard, 3 yards, and all of a sudden, one guy's out of position. It was a really good call in the first one. The Rams were just lined up horrendously for the Eagles to run the ball in that situation, and they took advantage of it. I mean, they had the center, the right guard, and the right tackle were all blocking little people, non-defensive linemen, which is insane that was the alignment the Rams were in. But
wait, you said center, right guard, and right tackle, so that's
we're blocking little people. Yeah, they were. It was 3rd and 4.
Mekhi
So
Becton is the right guard, and Lane Johnson's the right tackle.
Yeah. Well, it was 3rd and 4, so the Rams were aligned with 3 defensive linemen on the left shoulder of the center, the left guard, and the left tackle. 1 defensive lineman outside of the tight end on the right, and then 2 walk-up linebackers that were over the right guard and right tackle. So they just ran the ball, over the center and right guard, and Lane was blocking a safety off the ball or corner off the ball. It was man coverage. So it was just a terrible job by the Rams. I mean, look, I love third and medium runs, and the Eagles do that all the time. So do the Commanders, because you have a defense that's geared up to stop the pass, right? And you just run it right at the little guys. It's a great job. So I just love the way they play. I think there is some concern though about. I think it's fair to be a little concerned about Jalen Hurts. He did get a little beat up in that game, obviously, but not as crisp as I think you would like for, a team now with 2 playoff games under their belt. But with the way they run the football, it might not matter. It won't matter this weekend, I don't think, against Washington. But when they play the Chiefs or Buffalo, it might matter. He's not completing a lot of passes, not for a lot of yards.
Were you surprised that the Chiefs-Texans game was relatively close?
Well, the officials made sure it was close. That's why. So, when the officials determined everything, then I'm not surprised about it. I mean, a little surprised the Chiefs' offense had looked good previously and sort of sputtered a little bit, but they just didn't really throw the ball to wide receivers. They just said, look, Houston's linebackers don't cover as well, and their safeties are a little beat up right now, so let's just go over the middle of the field. And they threw the ball to Worthy a couple of times. And Hollywood Brown did drop that one deep pass, but the Chiefs' defense has been great all season, and it showed again yesterday. I mean, because Saturday now, their defense allowed 12 points. And, it's so funny we talk about, sort of how you win and lose games and what's a formula. And the Chiefs and all the teams this weekend proved the formula. Like, it's just team football, right? The Chiefs haven't turned the ball over in 8 games now, Sean. 8 games haven't turned the ball over in. They are really good on special teams, right? They had the opening kickoff return down to the field goal range. They didn't miss kicks. Houston missed 3 kicks in that game. And so those things are all important in the postseason. And one thing the Chiefs do so much better than anyone I can recall, I would imagine the Patriots, you could probably put them in this category. If you make a mistake, they take advantage of it. The first roughing the passer penalty, you could argue, okay, fine, a little nitpicky. I think he might have hit him on the helmet, but it's hard to tell. The reaction of where he was hit, it made it look like maybe he got helmet contact. I don't know. And the second one was a bad call on the roughing the passer, or not the personal foul, right? But what the Chiefs do is they take advantage of every mistake, every like if you give them extra downs, they're going to take advantage of it, Sean. And other teams just don't do that. They don't take advantage of those opportunities. And when you're playing them, you have to know that. And it puts pressure on the team they're playing to be perfect. If you're not perfect, the Chiefs take advantage of every mistake you make. And that's one thing we don't talk about, I think, enough when it comes to how good they are right now is they just make it tough on teams they're playing to have to play perfect. And it's so hard to do that in the National Football League. And the Chiefs are just so good at that.
Well, you talk about a team taking advantage of mistakes. You talk about having to play perfect. It was sad to see Baltimore and the same refrain going to continue because of self-inflicted wounds, because of mistakes. I get that Buffalo was in the right position to do good things in a lot of situations as well, but the self-inflicted wounds for the Baltimore Ravens are a reason why that narrative, fair or not, is going to continue for Lamar Jackson and maybe for Harbaugh at this point, because he was chasing points early when he probably didn't need to. Your comment about the Chiefs and the need at this point, especially in the season, it really brings that home, that playing perfect or close to perfect, if you don't, then you're the Baltimore Ravens on a Monday show where you were good enough to win but not quite.
The Ravens are the discussion about Lamar is interesting because I think people sort of don't understand why we have the discussion about Lamar the way we do. And the reason that we do is because he's about to be a 3-time MVP, right? And he'll have 3 playoff wins in his career. And he has not played as well in the postseason as a regular season. And to what degree that is, Sean, we can debate, right? Like, is it 20% as good? 50%? I don't know what the exact number is, but he's not as good. He had 2 horrific plays in this game, right? He threw that terrible interception early on, and then he fumbled. Yeah, bad snap. I get that, but you can't fumble that ball Like you recovered it in time to make a play. Go do anything but fumble the ball, right? And he doesn't make those mistakes in the regular season. And so that's why he's judged the way he is because he is an MVP. Like he is a guy that will be judged a little harsher than Jared Goff in these games. And Jared Goff was terrible too. Lamar wasn't terrible though, right? He just wasn't as good as usual. But that's now a pattern in the postseason. He is not as good in the postseason as the regular season. And that, I think, is why people judge him the way they do. And I think it's the right way to look at it. If you're going to win the MVP, we're going to judge you a little bit harsher in the postseason because in the end, that's really what matters. The MVP is a great regular season award, and you certainly deserve that. I think make the case that maybe Allen should have won this year, but he's not going to. And so we judge you, and you look at Josh Allen, and Josh Allen didn't have the best game ever. He was pedestrian-ish passing, but he didn't make any mistakes, Sean. And like that's a big difference in their game yesterday. We saw the 4 winners this weekend turn the ball over 0 times. 0 times. And you look at the teams that lost, the Lions turned over 5 times, the Ravens 3 times, the Rams 2 times. That's what happens in these games. And that's why Lamar gets judged the way he does.
Yeah, it's probably fair. It sucks to see that narrative continue for Mark Andrews, right? I mean, we've all, never in high-stakes situation like this, but dropping a pass is a thing. Fumbling the ball is a thing. He's a guy who has not done a lot of that this season. And then in the most crucial moment, drops what should be a routine reception for himself. How does a locker room process that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if you're someone who has been there a long time, I would imagine you look back and you say, well, that's not been Mark, right? Like it's not been what he's done throughout his career, and you would imagine look at all the positives you've seen over his career, acknowledging that this was a bad play by him and he has to make this catch, but also acknowledge that one of the reasons you're here is because of the way he played this season. I didn't like how he dodged the media yesterday, though. Did you see that he didn't do his availability, or he wasn't available in the locker room? I kind of don't like that. I feel like if you're going to be there when the good, then you got to be there with the bad, and you got to talk about it. You had a fumble and you had a drop pass in the final quarter. You got to be accountable for that. I'm sure he's accountable to his teammates, but part of being accountable is you got to talk to media. That's part of your job. I didn't like that, Sean, but otherwise, I don't think it's much of an issue.
All right, the Washington Commanders have halted the joyful run of the Detroit Lions. It was fun to watch the Lions kind of emerge as the top team in the NFC, and then Jaden Daniels, this rookie quarterback, just comes in and outplays a seasoned veteran in Jared Goff. I know that it's more than just that. It's more than just that matchup, certainly. But the Commanders, do they have a shot to actually win a Super Bowl in Jaden Daniels' first season?
Well, no. They could win this weekend, I think, but they're not beating the Chiefs or the Bills. I don't think so. Their defense is not very good. And eventually that sort of catches up to you. We saw, obviously, the Lions. I mean, they turned the ball over a bunch, but their defense is so beat up that eventually caught up with them this weekend. Who would have thought that when we first watched Daniels play, do you remember how scared we were about his weight? We were like, this guy, yes. He was a string bean in 2019.
That's right.
I mean, he's not very big now, but he was even smaller back then. And we were like, oh, we're terrible. This guy's going to get killed out there. And now he is an incredible football player. The takeaway from this game for me is if you're a Commanders fan, I mean, you're just like over the moon with this guy. I mean, you've waited years to have this quarterback, maybe since Doug Williams. I mean, when's the last? I mean, RG3 is a rookie. I think you were like, man, we got our guy. Just haven't had someone like this. And Commanders fans have waited years. I mean, obviously, we saw the numbers yesterday, right? This was the longest drought without a conference championship game. Now that goes to the Cowboys in not league history, but since 1991, I think it was. You got the coach. You have the quarterback. Like, you got to be pretty pumped about where you are right now as a franchise. Daniels is. I mean, think about right now. I know it's recency bias, of course, but think about just the top quarterbacks in the NFL. Right? It's right now. Mahomes, Allen, Jackson, Burrow. Like those probably your 4 in different orders. Okay.
Sure.
What was Daniels 5? Like, who's 5, Sean? Like, I think Daniels is in that discussion already.
Herbert would get a vote or two, but not after his most recent performance. So, yeah, I mean, your point is well made that a guy in his first year is – and I think when you talk about the impact that he's made on the franchise, like, he is MVP, depending on what your definition of MVP is. He is the MVP of the league, what he has done for this team in one season. And the franchise, the belief, the defense, although thinned out and not necessarily as talented as it needs to be, knows that they can trust the quarterback for once, which is totally different than the last 20 years in Washington. It really is an incredible thing to see from any quarterback, but especially one who's in his first year.
I think that's what you said, I think, is really important, is the trust, right? Like, the defense knows they don't have to be perfect because our quarterback can save us. Everyone, you can call play. I mean, their run on 4th down is going to end at some point. They're like 85% on the season. They were 4 for 5 last game, and one of them that didn't even count was the one where they got the last jump off sides, or excuse me, a 12 on the field penalty. It's they've it's incredible this season. It's going to end at some point. Maybe it ends this weekend, and maybe it ends in the Super Bowl. Like, it's going to end at some point. But I think that you change the entire way your organization is run because you have a quarterback now, and your game plan. It's so freeing, I would imagine, to know that this guy is as good as he is. And one thing that it's so fun to see, and I know you've obviously watched enough ball to notice this, is like there's no, when you watch him on the sidelines or they show pictures of him, there's like no fear in his eyes. Like, none whatsoever. Like, you can tell he's totally locked in. He's not afraid of the moment. Where other quarterbacks, you look at them and you're like, ooh, I don't know. Their face looks like they're not really, they don't trust themselves here. He just looks so composed, and obviously he plays that way as well.
Jeff Schwartz for another few minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show. We were talking about the NFL playoffs. So, NFC Championship is set. It's a divisional matchup between the Eagles and the Commanders. And, of course, another classic potential matchup, two great quarterbacks, Allen and Mahomes. Have you seen anything from this Bills team or this Chiefs team to make you think that the Bills might actually get it done this upcoming weekend?
Well, yeah, I mean, every Chiefs game is close. I think that it's, and they've had troubles in the past of just stopping Allen. I mean, Allen's a really good football player. And so, I mean, that to me strikes me as one of the bigger issues, is that Allen is just a really good football player, Sean, and he's hard to stop. I think that the matchups just on paper sort of favor the Chiefs a little bit. Like, you have a Bills team right now that's pretty beat up at safety after last game, right? A couple guys go down with some injuries, and that's bad against Kansas City with what they can do with Travis Kelce. Chiefs are healthier than they were when they first played, and you have that extra. You have Watson back, the Washington State kid, and that allows you to play more man coverage, which I think against Buffalo probably is not a bad way to go, because their wide receivers, they don't really have a go-to guy. Shakir, I guess, and Cooper hasn't really been the guy, and Coleman's a rookie, and so you feel like those are favorable matchups for Kansas City. But I saw this graphic, and it's totally true. The Chiefs and Bills have the last 10 games, 5-5, and each team has scored and given up exactly 251 yards. Whoa. 251 points. I'm sorry. So it's been dead even, and of course Chiefs have won in the postseason. I think playing at Arrowhead is really difficult, and I think that's maybe one reason to pick Kansas City here. Plus, I don't think Josh Allen's going to win this game, or they're not going to win this game if he throws for 150 yards, whatever he threw for against Buffalo. Baltimore. There's some work to be done offensively, I think, in this game. But Josh Allen, man, is so dangerous, man. He is one of those guys. Like, I'm a Chiefs fan where I'm like, oh boy, I hope he doesn't, essentially ruin the game, right? Like, he every time he drops back to pass, I'm like, please don't run. He's such an incredible football player that it does feel very much like this is a a last possession game. Whoever has the ball last is going to win.
I haven't looked at the weather, the forecast
looks fine.
for this weekend. Everything's fine. No,
It looks fine. Yeah,
I
I looked. I looked already this weekend. So just cold, but should be fine.
All right.
Did you like? I like the games in the snow. Not every game should be in the snow, but I think last weekend was perfectly fine. The snow game was fun.
Yeah, snow games are great. Rain games are great. You don't want every game played in it, like you said, but and I guess you have a gripe if you're a team that isn't accustomed to playing in that, and then you do.
Well, then have home field advantage then. So that's my answer.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Moving on to the national championship in college football, Ohio State 8.5-point favorites. How are you playing it?
I think Ohio State wins. I don't know if it's fairly close. Are you pulling for Notre Dame probably, right?
Yeah. Yes. I think Notre Dame has a real chance to win this game. I think the thing that scares me the most, and you and I were doing a show together and talked about this a lot, Notre Dame is very much a man defense team, and I don't know if you can play your own, like if you can run your stuff against the talent that Ohio State has.
You can't.
And that's why it scares me a little bit because when we were doing a show together, we saw that Utah run into that a couple of times before they were able to make the adjustment and get over the USC and Oregon challenges and Washington challenges of the world.
Oregon, but for the record, had the same problem against Ohio State. Just they play man coverage. Washington 2 years ago, like they play man coverage a bunch, and you have to if you're Al Golden, you're the Irish DC, like. What brought you to the dance was what you do well, and excuse me, it's hard just to not do it anymore. It's just hard just to be like, you know what, I'm not running man. It got me to the dance. I'm just not doing it anymore. It's hard to do. It's hard to say that. It's hard to just decide to do something different than what's worked all season. And you also might not be good at those techniques. Like Oregon played more zone against Ohio State than they wanted to. They're not terribly good at it. They're a man coverage team, and you have to sort of bring what I don't think that's a recipe for success tonight. I think Ohio State wins this game pretty handily.
Okay. Do either of these coaches move on from their current position to somewhere else after this game?
No. Do you think so?
If I were Ryan Day, I would be trying to go do something else. If you can win this national championship and then not hang around for the inevitable 2-loss season that follows where people are calling for you to be fired again, I would want to preempt that by moving on. But I don't think
to where?
To go,
Bears job?
Yeah, Chicago maybe. Go coach in the NFL somewhere.
Yeah. What do you think of Chip's quote just dogging Oregon?
What's that?
You see Chip's quote when he was dogging Oregon about there was a rallying cry for us that they couldn't beat us with 11, so they had to try to beat us with 12. Loved it. Good for Chip.
Chip just he loves the situation he's in right now. He doesn't have.
Oh my God, he did not like it. UCLA was not for him.
He did not like being a head coach at UCLA.
This is perfect. This is perfect. But if Ryan Day goes, is Chip the coach though?
That's a great question. I think if Ryan Day goes, then Ohio State's going to try to steal Marcus Freeman,
or what's his face, the wide receiver coach Hartline.
Okay, let's flesh this out a little bit. If Ryan Day takes another job somewhere, let's say he gets a call from the Jets, and he's just like, "Fine, I'll go be an NFL coach," and then 3 years later he'll be back in college football, but still, I'm going to go be an NFL coach. Ohio State is Marcus Freeman's alma mater. And obviously he's done incredible things at Notre Dame. He's got him to this point on the precipice of a national championship. Ohio State, I presume, can still pay more than Notre Dame, or at least as much as Notre Dame, and it's his alma mater. Does he take an Ohio State job if it's offered to him?
So they've won the game tonight. Ohio State wins tonight.
Ohio State wins tonight. Ryan Day rides off into his own New York Jets sunset, and Freeman is the first guy that Ohio State calls.
No.
They don't care about the buyout. He played his college football there.
No, I don't think he takes the job.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
He is pretty good at Notre Dame. You're going to be a playoff team every single year, basically. And he has the support. And he made it this year with Riley Leonard at quarterback. Imagine if he's a better quarterback. Like I feel like, no. I would imagine the answer is no. That would cause quite a domino, though.
That would be a big move. I don't know. I don't think it's going to play out exactly like that, obviously. But what about the total? 45.5 points. Over-under is set at 45.5. These two teams are the top 2 scoring defenses in all of college football. I think I know where you're going with this, but I'll let you say it.
In my head, the game is 31-13. So that's under, okay. I believe.
Oh, 31-13. I need it to be more of a game than that. I need Notre Dame to give a
These
better
games
test.
are always blowouts.
Why would the number 2 defense in the country be blown out, though? Why?
Because they play man coverage.
All right, fine.
I mean, I just think, and I think they're going to. I think the Irish just aren't going to score, and it's going to put Ohio State in good position to cash in.
By the way, James,
on those
my
scores.
producer, is sitting there behind the glass with an Ohio State jersey, Ohio State hat, Ohio State socks, Ohio State underwear. Got Ohio State pants on. The dude is just laughing gleefully right now over your prediction that it's going to be a blowout.
You grew up an Irish fan, right? I have that right.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah,
mostly because when you're Irish Catholic, you have to
Well, yeah, I did. I mean, you have the Notre Dame tattoo somewhere. I have to imagine.
Yes,
just somewhere.
The leprechaun. We all have to get it. Everyone's.
I will say that is my. I've said this many times. This is my favorite thing about you. Is like the full chest tattoo that you just don't even know you have at any time, except when you're fighting.
Which I don't do anymore. So now nobody that listens to the show knew that I had a bunch of tattoos. You just outed me.
You're doing some you just do some training though still, right? Some coaching training.
Yeah, I mean every once in a while. Not nearly as often as I should. I actually have not been to the gym yet in 2025.
That's not surprising to me.
It tells you how well I'm doing.
I went to the gym today. Did a Peloton yesterday. It's new year, new me. When you fly to your destination tomorrow, do you sit in the old business class?
I'm not going to make a comment on that right now.
But you see, but wasting money on you to sleep in business class when you sleep for 15 hours is not worth it. I stay awake for the entire flight.
No, see, when it's a super long flight like that, I'm not sleeping the whole time. The return flight, by the way, from when I come back from Dubai to Houston, I think that's I think that's going to be the second longest flight I've ever been on.
How many hours?
17.
This is going to be obviously very bougie, but when you do sit in that business class on those international flights, you do feel like a king. You're just in this little pod.
Oh,
they bring you all this nice food.
It brings out the absolute worst in me as a human.
Absolutely. You're just in this luxurious little. Especially when you travel with your significant other, you don't have to talk to them for 12 hours. You're just in your own little world.
You just feel so entitled to everything.
Yes,
you're
like, ma'am, water, please. I need more water. It's a level of bougie that is even for me.
You're very bougie.
Excessive.
Yeah. You're mad 10 minutes into the flight because they haven't brought you the warm salted nuts yet. You're just like, what is going on?
You know what? I'm not a fan of the nuts. I only have
Come on.
I only have the pecans or whatever.
That's
pecans.
ridiculous. That's one of the best things about sitting
and the pistachios.
Seat. All right.
What airline do you fly?
Wrong. Well, Delta is a major hub here in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
Delta.
I remember, because you have to walk when you don't fly Delta. You have to walk 8 miles from the Salt Lake City airport.
Yeah. You're condemned to the B gates when you're flying because you fly American out of Charlotte, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, peasant.
I mean, I'm executive platinum. I don't know if a peasant I am, but sure.
Yeah, you're an executive platinum peasant at the Salt Lake City airport.
That I am, and it took an hour to get my skis and everything. It's just ridiculous.
What do you mean?
Should have told them I knew you. They bring my skis out immediately.
Yeah, they would have. Actually, that might have worked because I know people at the airport. That could have worked for you.
Well, they're also not my skis either, but I don't have skis.
Well, even though you've crushed my hopes for a good national championship game tonight, I always appreciate your time and your insight, Jeff Schwartz. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. Have a good week. Have fun on when's your first when you on TV? What day?
Friday night we got the weigh-ins, and then Saturday are the fights.
I'm sure not to watch it. Sounds good.
Oh, messed up. Sean O'Connell Show. That is Jeff Schwartz.
Bye, buddy.
Former Oregon Duck, and of course, more importantly for our purposes today, longtime NFL veteran on the offensive line. If you're not following Jeff Schwartz on Twitter, please go do so. It's GEOFF, that kind of Jeff Schwartz. Jeff is the best guy to follow when you're watching great offensive line play, because he is always going to find you the moment when, like, Mekhi Becton throws somebody out of the club, as the offensive linemen like to say. There was some abuse going on. That Philadelphia Eagles offensive line just smashing holes open for Saquon Barkley, who, of course, is an incredible player, but James Peterson could have run for at least a first down in some of those.
Pretty sure I did. That's how big the holes were.
All right. Take a quick break here. When we come back, something is flying under the radar right now. Wisconsin versus Miami in court. I'll tell you why it matters to Utah next on the Sean O'Connell Show. ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right, I told you there's an important legal case, an important legal battle going on right now between the University of Wisconsin and the University of Miami. Normally that wouldn't bother Utah fans, BYU fans, Aggie fans, whatever, but I'll tell you in a second why it matters to you as a fan of a local university. Breaking news, though. James, you just brought this to my attention.
Yeah, Ben Johnson finalizing a deal to become the Bears' next head coach. Ben Johnson, of course, the Lions' great offensive coordinator who's been rumored to be the next head coach for a lot of different teams the last couple of years. He has decided to leave the Lions to be the Bears' head coach and coach Caleb Williams.
And this is where it gets really interesting. It's not just in the NFL. It's not just in football even. You see it with NBA teams, college basketball teams, etc. You may never pass this way again. When you have your opportunity to make a deep run in the playoffs, to win a Super Bowl, to win a college football championship, to win a college basketball championship, a lot of times that's a confluence of factors that allows you to be a contender, right? That allows you to be what you are as a team, that allows your chemistry, your culture, etc., to be perfect in that moment. Then this stuff happens. Success breeds opportunity, and sometimes that opportunity robs you of further success. I don't know if Dan Campbell and his franchise model is going to be able to survive the departure of a guy who got the most out of Jared Goff up until this last game, right? Sounds like a great hire for the Bears. Again, we don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but now the defensive coordinator, by the way, in Detroit, also getting a lot of attention. So Dan Campbell may lose both coordinators in one offseason cycle. They do have some important personnel decisions to make regarding players. So I'm not going to tell you that the Super Bowl window has closed for the Detroit Lions, but it gets harder and harder to prop it open when you lose great coaches to other franchises. Even though you are happy for their success and you applaud their moving on and you're like, yeah, this is what we want. I mean, Alabama did this for years and years, right? A guy would go there. He would be an assistant coach at Alabama, a year or two of great success at Alabama. He'd take a job elsewhere. He'd take an Alabama or a Georgia job. He'd take a Southern Miss job. He'd take an Ole Miss job.
Be a coordinator in the NFL, we saw too.
And because it was Alabama and because it was Nick Saban, he was always able to backfill. There's no reason why you wouldn't want to, if you're an offensive coach, wouldn't want to go and be in Detroit with Dan Campbell and take advantage of some of the great things that they have going on. Penei Sewell's under contract. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is locked up. You know, they have good tight ends. The quarterback situation is going to have to be addressed sooner than later in the draft, right? Because Jared Goff is not a young player anymore. But is the Super Bowl window going to remain open for Detroit? I'm not ready to say it's closed yet, but it's something to keep an eye on, as that success that they've had breeds opportunity for assistant coaches, which may in turn end up hurting the franchise. It's counterintuitive, but that's the way it works.
Yeah, they're going to have to prove that it's still open. Is where it is now. You're right. It'd be irresponsible without seeing how they play under new offensive and potentially defensive coordinators. It'd be irresponsible to assume that it's closed without seeing them play under that new structure, new people. But it would be they still need to kind of prove that window is still open, and we'll see how they adjust to not having Ben Johnson, a guy who's been one of the most highly coveted guys on the in the head coaching market in the last couple of years. He's finally decided that he's gonna take a chance at being the Bears head coach.
Apparently, according to Adam Schefter, there's already in-house candidates for Detroit. Scotty Montgomery, who's been their running backs coach. Tanner Engstrand, who's been their passing game coordinator. Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator, moves on. I guess Kelvin Shepard, the linebackers coach, would be getting an interview there. So Dan Campbell is not blind to what this has meant. He's not blind to the idea that his team's success is going to let Ben Johnson take these phone calls and Aaron Glenn take these phone calls. And so he has apparently started to lay the groundwork for future plans. But good luck to the Lions trying to replace a really good young coordinator. And good luck to the Chicago Bears in making that whole marriage work because they're a talented team. Chicago, with the right coaching situation and improvement on defense, could really become something.
Yeah, and we've talked off air about this a lot, OC. Caleb Williams, because the Bears were nowhere close to a playoff team this year, he's been kind of forgotten. His rookie season has been kind of forgotten about. If he's on the Commanders and they're in the playoffs, he's probably looked at as the no doubt rookie of the year. Like, just he plays the same way. His team just happens to be in the playoffs. That's how good Caleb Williams was this year. They just happened to not win a lot in Chicago. So they've got a ton of potential. We've been talking about reasons for optimism for Utah football so far this short off season. There's a ton of reason for optimism, especially with a young, really good offensive mind with Ben Johnson at the helm now.
Okay, tampering in college football and in college sports in general. Is this something that is going to be stopped by the NCAA? There's a Miami versus Wisconsin case that we're going to discuss to close out the show, and then we'll send it to Spence Checketts in the drive next. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Going to turn you over to the drive with Spence Checketts here in 9 minutes. Spence is live at the warehouse today for their MLK Day sale. 1825 South, 300 West in Salt Lake City. Final segment of the show brought to you by Advanced Window Products. If you need new windows, you can buy direct from a local manufacturer, local installation, local warranty coverage. No middleman, no markups, $2,500 off 10 windows or more. AdvancedWindows.com. Tell them OC sent you, 801-850-9100. Tell the mayor of Sac Lake City we said what's up. Haven't seen him this year yet. All right. Also, one final order of business. Don't forget about the cash kickoff going on. $1,000 cash to pay your bills by texting SMILE to 508-777-1000 for a chance to win. That's 508-777-1000. Text the word SMILE. This is a nationwide contest. All right. I teased this a couple of times because it's something flying under the radar. There's a national championship game tonight you're going to want to watch. There's NFL playoff talk going on. The coaching carousel is spinning. Right now, Wisconsin and Miami are going to blows over a transfer quarterback, Xavier Lucas, defensive back who's expected to transfer. And this is going to set a precedent in college football for how enforceable the binding agreements in NIL contracts are. Right now, this guy wants to leave Wisconsin, okay? He wants to go play at Miami. Oh, it makes perfect sense to me if Miami's offering you money to go. Problem is, according to Wisconsin, this young man signed a 2-year NIL deal, right? And we've seen this with Bryce Underwood. We saw this with Nico Iamaleava, from Tennessee. These guys with multiple years on their deal for these big, like, multi-million-dollar contracts, how enforceable is that? We know in pro sports, when you sign a 5-year deal, it'll tell you when the player option is. It'll tell you when the club option is. But you're locked up. That's not the case right now in college football or in college basketball. And, of course, these universities, these teams, are bearing the brunt of that by losing talent to competition, even indirect competition. Miami and Wisconsin are not exactly conference foes, right? How enforceable are these things? And Wisconsin is setting a strange precedent by actually trying to go after it, because why would you want a kid who doesn't want to be there anymore?
Yeah, that's one of the more interesting things with this, because we've also talked about not only that, why would you want a guy who doesn't want to be there, but also this opens up potential scrutiny on you.
That's right.
Because who knows if you've been following the rules to the very T, the very letter, as far as this goes too. So this is kind of brave of them, courageous of them to go after this.
Now, Wisconsin's whole case is based on a statement that they're making. They apparently have credible information regarding impermissible contact between Xavier and the University of Miami. Everyone in the world right now has impermissible contact. The question is, do they have an impermissible contract with Miami? Has this kid signed something binding with Miami and their NIL at the same time he's under the, I guess, authority of something at Wisconsin and their NIL situation? That is the real question in this whole deal. And how enforceable it actually is, that's what you need to pay attention to. You don't care about Wisconsin, you don't care about Miami, but you have to care whether or not Utah, BYU, etc. can sign players to binding agreements under their NIL situations. Irish by 10 tonight, James. I'm calling the upset.
Okay.
Right.
You didn't like the 31-13 prediction.
I hated that prediction from Jeff Schwartz. Hated it.
I'm not sure I'm that confident that it's going to be that big of a blowout, but he does make a good point. We haven't seen a good national championship game maybe ever. Well, not ever. We have seen a couple in the college football playoff era, but most of them have been blowouts. Just about all of them have been blowouts, so we'll see. We got to have some kind of – we were talking on Thursday. We got to have some kind of bet here, OC.
You figure it out. We're sending it to the drive with Spence Checketts.
Let's do it.
ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.